Chapter 4062. The four guests were so scared that they didn't dare to move. As for Si Haishao himself, although he was tipsy and dizzy, he still vaguely heard the words West Island Lord and Master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat, and his tipsy feeling was mostly gone. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to wake up. His opponent's strength was much higher than his, and he didn't have any chance to resist at all. At this time, even begging for mercy was just wishful thinking. Just now, when he was blinded by lust, he had completely offended the two women, and even the big shots behind them, under everyone's gaze. In front of the four guests of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, this master of Soaring Sky Pavilion began to ravage Si Haishao bit by bit. Crack, 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 under everyone's gaze. Every bone and meridian in Si Haishao's body was mercilessly destroyed by a powerful and overbearing true qi until it was completely broken. At first, Si Haishao still had the strength to scream, but after a while, he didn't even have the strength to scream. In everyone's eyes, he was like a duck that had been strangled. The blue veins on his forehead stood out, and he desperately screamed, but he couldn't make any sound. Looking at this scene, everyone whispered to each other. Regarding Si Haishao's tragic end, they could only say three words: sad, ridiculous, and pitiful. Bang! The master of Soaring Sky Pavilion casually threw Si Haishao, who had fainted, on the ground, and turned to the two women for instructions. Miss Ning, Miss Shangguan, do you want to take this person back and cure him? Although the other party was the manager of a branch of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, and under normal circumstances, except for the top management of the Hong Chamber of Commerce's headquarters, no one else had the right to punish him. But today's matter involved the two misses of West Island and Soaring Sky Pavilion, so Si Haishao had only himself to blame. Even if they took him back and killed him, the Hong Chamber of Commerce didn't have the face to stop it. Hearing this, Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. They shook their heads in unison. Both of them were not ruthless people. Although this old bastard was extremely hateful, it was already miserable enough that he was tortured to this extent in public. Anyway, he did not take advantage of them, so there was no need to pursue him relentlessly. If that's the case, then I'll spare his dog life for now. The expert from the Soaring Sky Pavilion nodded and then retreated behind the two women with a solemn expression. Just like the others, Lin Yi was speechless when he saw Si Haishao gasping for air on the ground. The previously high and mighty shopkeeper of the Hong Chamber of Commerce was now like a dead dog. After what happened today, the Hong Chamber of Commerce behind him would not protect him. In order to explain to West Island and Rising Sky Pavilion, they would even punish Si Haishao severely. In short, Si Haishao, the newly appointed shopkeeper, had only been in high spirits for a few days, but in the blink of an eye, he was finished. Little junior brother, let's go and find a place to have a good talk with me. When exactly did you become a staff member of the Hong Chamber of Commerce? Why didn't I know about it at all? Shangguan Laner pouted gloomily. The matter of the northernmost island. Lin Yi didn't tell her, and Ning Xuefei kept her in suspense. She was kept in the dark from the beginning and became an outsider. Compared to being slandered by Si Haishao as a prostitute, this matter was much more serious. Yes, I also have something very important to ask you. Yes, I also have something very important to ask you. Ning Xuefei immediately put aside the unhappiness just now and pulled Lin Yi excitedly. Then, okay, Lin Yi nodded helplessly. Anyway, seeing that the Hong Chamber of Commerce was in a mess, he couldn't buy anything for a while, so he could only go with these two young ladies for the time being. Being surrounded by two beautiful young ladies on both sides, Lin Yi's treatment really made the people around him drool with envy, especially when they thought of the rich backgrounds of these two women. They were even more jealous. Any one of them would be a winner in life with both power and beauty, let alone 1 against 2. This kid looked thin and weak. He didn't look like an expert, and there was nothing special about him. How could he be favored by the heavens? Of course, jealousy was just jealousy. Looking at the 5 soaring sky pavilion gold core stage experts scattered around the 2 women, with Si Haixiao's bloody example in front of them. No matter how unbalanced they were, they could only watch helplessly, and did not dare to make the slightest movement. Compared to Lin Yi's blessing of having 2 women, Si Haixiao's ending was really bitter tears. When he woke up from the unbearable pain all over his body, a whole day had passed. When he finally realized the situation he was in, he was so shocked that he couldn't help but gasp. As the manager of the North Island branch of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce, Si Haixiao was actually thrown on the street of the inner street of the market and left to fend for himself. What the F***CK? Are you all dead? How dare you treat me like this? Today, I will kick all of you out. Si Haixiao's old face suddenly turned red when he was looked up and down by the strange eyes of passers-by, and he cursed angrily. Even if he made such a stupid mistake as yesterday, he was still a manager after all, and it was impossible for him to end up like a beggar on the street. Si Haixiao immediately cursed and tried to get up, but after struggling for a few times, he found that he could not stand up at all. Then he realized that the tendons in his limbs had been broken by someone with true qi, and he was now a useless man. But even so, Si Haixiao still did not lose his usual arrogance. He shouted to the passers-by, "Whoever comes over and carries me to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, I will give you a big reward." If what he said was on the open day of the inner street yesterday, maybe some passers-by who did not know the truth would be willing to give it a try. But now it was not the open day, and those who could come and go here were all people of status in the North Island. Si Haixiao's stupid feat yesterday had already been spread by word of mouth, and no one would pay attention to such a blind fool. After shouting for a long time, seeing that the passers-by were still indifferent, Si Haixiao finally stopped shouting in despair. But he did not give up. Since no one was willing to carry him, he would climb over by himself. The inner street was so big that even if he climbed all the way from the street to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the distance was not too far. Once he arrived at the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it would be his territory. Under the gazes of the onlookers, Si Haixiao gritted his teeth and forced his way to the entrance of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. However, his subordinates, who were incomparably fawning over him, were only slightly stunned when they saw him. Then they immediately looked away, as if they did not see him. Chapter 4063. However, the people in the store just looked at each other, and then went on with their own business, with no intention of helping Si Haixiao at all. Humph! Good. Very good. Today, I've seen the fickleness of human nature. Didn't you see that my tendons and meridians were broken? So you think I'm a useless person? Let me tell you, I can recover from this injury by taking the holy healing medicine. Even if I can't, I'm still your shopkeeper, and your life and death are still in my hands. Very good. I've seen your performance. None of you will have a good ending. Si Haixiao kept scolding. At this time, the young man who was the closest to him and was often beaten by him a few days ago suddenly said, "I don't know if we will have a good ending, but you definitely won't. Your matter has been passed to the headquarters yesterday, and the higher-ups of the headquarters have already dealt with you. In order to give a satisfactory explanation to the master of West Island and the master of Soaring Pavilion, you have been completely removed from the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce and will never be employed again." What? That's impossible. You're talking nonsense. How dare you lie to me? Do you want to die? Si Haixiao's body shook in disbelief, and then he suddenly roared crazily. Lie to you? Open your dog eyes wide, and take a good look before saying anything. A short-lived branch manager like you is truly unprecedented. in the history of our Hong Chamber of Commerce. Your Excellency can really be considered as the first person in history. The shop assistant sneered disdainfully and pointed at a notice pasted in the middle of the wall. It clearly stated the punishment of Si Haixiao by the higher-ups of Middle Island of the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce, and the seal was indeed the unique seal of the headquarters. In an instant, Si Haixiao felt like he was struck by lightning, and his mind went blank. Just because of a drunken flirtation, the shopkeeper Fong, who was still high and mighty yesterday, was fired by the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce forever. Even though Si Haixiao was lying at the door in a daze, the people of the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce didn't care about him. They continued to do their own things. A new ruler brings a new minister. What they needed to think about now was when the new shopkeeper would arrive. As for an idiot like Si Haixiao, they didn't care about him. In just a short moment, Si Haixiao seemed to have aged a few decades. He raised his head with great difficulty and said, "Even though I'm no longer your shopkeeper, I'm still your esteemed customer since I'm here to buy medicine. I'm here to buy healing medicine, so I'm still your esteemed customer. Is this how you treat your honored guests?" The shop assistant, who was closest to him, couldn't help but sneer. "Honored guest? Could it be that not only are your tendons and meridians crippled, but your brain is also crippled? Oh, right, to be able to do something as stupid as what you did yesterday. You don't have any brains to begin with. Then, I shall be merciful and give you a reminder. I'm sorry, but you've already been blacklisted by the Hong Chamber of Commerce, no matter if you go to the branch or the headquarters. We won't accept you." Si Haixiao was completely speechless. He stared helplessly at the healing elixirs on the display case. "A good dog doesn't block the way. I advise you to find another place to lie down. Otherwise, if you affect the business of our Hong Chamber of Commerce, you won't be able to bear the consequences." The shop assistant sneered with an unfriendly expression. Si Haixiao clenched his teeth. If it was in the past, he would have killed this fellow with a slap. It was a pity that he was a nobody now. Furthermore, he was a cripple who couldn't even walk. No matter how indignant he was, he could only swallow his anger for the time being. He crawled out of the Hong Chamber of Commerce silently. Si Haixiao didn't give up just like that. He turned and crawled towards the Chamber of Commerce next to him. His top priority now was to quickly buy healing elixirs to treat his injuries. Even if he couldn't treat them in a short period of time, he had to at least stabilize his injuries and prevent them from worsening. The Hong Chamber of Commerce wasn't far away. It was the wealthy metropolis. Although their foundations were slightly weaker than the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the difference was limited. Si Haixiao shamelessly crawled all the way to the wealthy metropolis. He couldn't care less about the strange gazes of the people around him. He shouted impatiently, "Someone quickly prepare a level 5 meridian unblocking pill for me." All the tendons and meridians in his body had been shattered by someone's true qi. Only a level 5 meridian unblocking pill had a chance of treating such injuries. The employees of the wealthy metropolis were stunned. After whispering to each other, they didn't dare to make the decision on their own. They immediately invited manager. "How out?" "Oh, isn't this the new manager C next door? What a rare guest. May I know what orders you have for my humble shop today?" Manager How appeared to be warm on the surface, but everyone could see the hint of mockery hidden in his eyes. Furthermore, he had no intention of helping Si Haixiao up from the start. Si Haixiao suppressed his anger and said, "I need a level 5 meridian unblocking pill. Prepare it for me." A level 5 meridian unblocking pill? This is a rare big deal. Manager How raised his eyebrows. Then he said regretfully, "It's a pity that our humble shop doesn't have a level 5 meridian unblocking pill in stock at the moment." "What? No stock?" Si Haishao almost vomited blood when he heard that. Whether he could recover from his injuries and find a chance to make a comeback depended entirely on this level 5 meridian unblocking pill. How could the wealthy metropolis not have it? Unbeknownst to him, it wasn't that the wealthy metropolis did not have it in stock. It was just that manager, How didn't want to sell it to him on purpose. After winning the last auction in the extreme North Island, the Hong Chamber of Commerce could be said to be like the sun at high noon. Even the wealthy families would have to tolerate such a competitor. There was no need to offend the Hong Chamber of Commerce for a stupid trash like Si Haishao, and it was not worth it. If we don't have a level 5 meridian unblocking pill, then there should be a level 4 great recovery pill, right? Si Haishao didn't want to give up. Although the level 4 great recovery pill was not as effective as the level 5 meridian unblocking pill, it could at least stabilize his injuries. Unexpectedly, Manager Hao shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, we don't have it either. Someone bought it out of stock some time ago." "You don't have it either?" Si Haishao was stunned. If it was worse than a level 4 great recovery pill, other healing pills would not have any effect on his current injuries. Si Haishao had no choice but to crawl out of the wealthy metropolis and turn to other merchant unions. His purpose was obvious. He was still looking to buy a level 5 meridian unblocking pill and a level 4 great recovery pill. However, the reply that the other merchant unions received was the same. They were all out of stock. This time, no matter how slow Si Haishao's brain was, he finally realized that something was wrong. These merchant unions were obviously looking out for the Hong Merchant Union's face. They didn't dare to sell to him at all. Chapter 4064. However, Si Haishao did not give up. Even if he had to crawl all the way, he had to ask all the chambers of commerce in the inner street. He did not believe that all the chambers of commerce would ignore the large amount of spiritual jades and follow the Hong Consortium's lead. Finally, when Si Haishao climbed to the point of exhaustion and was about to give up, he saw a 4th grade great recovery pill on the display of a store called the Central Chamber of Commerce. Si Haishao was overjoyed. Even if there was no 5th grade meridian unblocking pill, this 4th grade great recovery pill was a lifesaver for him. Si Haishao hurriedly crawled into the door of the Central Chamber of Commerce. He pointed at the display case and shouted, "Guards, I want that 4th grade great recovery pill. It's on display. You can't possibly lie and pretend that you don't have it in stock, right?" The manager looked at him in surprise and smiled. "Sir, you must be joking. This is business that comes knocking on your door. As a businessman, how can I reject it? Since you want it, I'll get someone to pack it up for you. As for the method of payment, would you like to swipe the spiritual jade card? Or, of course." Si Haishao took out the spiritual jade card from his bosom with great difficulty and handed it over to the steward. He was secretly rejoicing in his heart. Fortunately, he had earned a lot of spiritual jades over the years. This was the capital for him to stage a comeback in the future. However, a moment later, Si Haishao was dumbfounded. The spiritual jade card had been frozen and could not be swiped at all. This news caused Si Haishao to spit out a mouthful of blood in front of everyone. All of his spirit jades were on this spirit jade card. This was his entire fortune and his life. Not only was he tortured into a cripple, but he could not even use the spiritual jade card that was his last hope. Si Haishao almost fainted in front of the Central Chamber of Commerce in despair. Gathering his last bit of spirit, Si Haishao crawled out of the door in a daze. However, he did not know where to go. There was no way out. This time, he really didn't have any ideas. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from beside him. "If you want the elixir, follow me." Si Haishao looked up in the direction of the voice and found that the person who spoke was a mysterious person wearing a black windbreaker. Even his face was covered by a black bamboo hat, making it impossible to see his face clearly. "Are you talking to me?" Si Haishao had already lost all hope. At this moment, he was like a drowning man grasping at his last life-saving straw. The mysterious man did not reply, but just lowered his head and gave him a meaningful look. Then he walked to the side. Si Haishao was confused, but he still clenched his teeth and followed after them with great effort, hoping to get lucky. In any case, he was nothing now, and he was penniless. He was a complete cripple, with a rotten life. There was nothing to be afraid of. As if he was waiting for Si Haishao, the mysterious man deliberately walked very slowly. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, they finally stopped in front of a grand and luxurious tea house, and it was called the Central Tea Party. Si Haishao couldn't help but feel puzzled. Look at this name. Could it be that it was opened by the same company as the Central Chamber of Commerce? Speaking of which, as the former Four Directions supervisor of Hongying Group, Si Haishao had specially investigated this Central Chamber of Commerce before he came to North Island. This was a business that had only recently risen to prominence. However, in just a few months, they quickly occupied all the islands, even the middle island where the competition was the fiercest. Their Chamber of Commerce appeared at the same time. Si Haishao used the Hongying Group's intelligence system, but in the end, he still could not find out the owner behind the Central Chamber of Commerce. He only knew that this person was very mysterious and had a very terrifying power. The Central Chamber of Commerce was not like the other chambers of commerce, which grew slowly from small to large. It gave people the feeling that it had grown from nothing to something in just a few days. Suddenly, it was like a spring breeze. Thousands of pear trees bloomed, and suddenly, it was all over the 5 main islands of Heaven Stage. He followed the mysterious man all the way into an elegant private room. Seeing that the mysterious man sat down and faced him, Si Haishao braced himself and said nervously, "You were looking for me?" Before he finished his sentence, the mysterious man did not speak, but took out a grade 5 meridian conduit elixir and placed it on the table in front of Si Haishao. This is for me?" Si Haishao couldn't help but swallow his saliva, his eyes shining as he stared at the grade 5 meridian conduit elixir in front of him. This was the only elixir that could save his life now. However, Si Haishao was not a fool. No matter how much he desired it, he dared not reach out to take the elixir. He could only rub his hands awkwardly and say, I don't have spiritual jade. "You don't need spiritual jade. I'll give it to you," the mysterious man said calmly. Si Haishao was elated, but he still suppressed his greed and said, I think that I have no value now. I wonder if you have value. You just haven't realized it," the mysterious man interrupted. "Oh," Si Haishao was stunned, not understanding what the other party meant. "As long as you promise to work for me wholeheartedly, this grade 5 meridian conduit elixir will be yours," the mysterious man stated. "All right." Si Haishao agreed, without hesitation. He had nothing left now. No matter what he did for the mysterious man in the future, it would be better than being a cripple waiting for death. The mysterious man nodded in satisfaction and said, "I heard that you started out in the intelligence department. Not bad. I have an organization in my hands, and I'll hand it over to you in the future." "Oh, I'll take charge? What do I need to do?" Si Haishao's eyes lit up. The mysterious man smiled faintly and said, "It's very simple. Help me find some people with potential but evil intentions. For example, people like you." Huh. Si Haishao suddenly felt that his brain was not working properly. It was easy to understand finding people with potential, but evil intentions. What kind of request was that? "There's no need to ask why. As long as you agree, I'll give you a brand new future. Your status won't be lower than the manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. As for the power, It'll be beyond your imagination. The mysterious man's tone was calm, but it sounded strangely enticing to Si Haishao. All right, I agree. Si Haishao nodded immediately. Very good. From today onwards, you'll be the manager of the Chamber of Commerce in the North Island. Of course, this is only your public identity. As for your secret identity, it's the team leader of the intelligence team in the North Island. The mysterious man said calmly. Huh. Even though Si Haishao had already thought of countless possibilities in his mind, he could not help but be shocked when he heard the mysterious man's words. Chapter 4065. One simple sentence from the other party, and Si Haishao became a shopkeeper again. What's more, he became the leader of the intelligence team. Life was indeed unpredictable. This great rise and fall had come too quickly. Just as Si Haishao was so shocked that he didn't know what to say, the mysterious man took out another bottle and placed it beside the Great Meridian Channel unblocking pill. He said, "Drink this bottle of medicinal liquid now. It won't affect your body, but you have to take the antidote once a month. If you don't have any ulterior motives, I will give you the antidote regularly." Si Haishao's heart sank. There was no free lunch in this world. The mysterious man gave him such a huge benefit, but there were conditions. There's no point in hesitating. Do you think that I'll let you leave this room alive if you don't agree after I've said so much to you? As he spoke, a towering aura erupted from the mysterious man, causing the entire tea party to tremble. Even with Si Haishao's experience, he was still dumbfounded by this terrifying aura that he had never seen before. Not to mention that he was now a cripple. Even if he was at his peak, he would probably be no stronger than an ant in front of this mysterious person. Si Haishao had no choice. Since things had come to this, he could only crawl to the table, pick up the bottle of medicinal liquid, and drink it. He didn't dare to have any ulterior motives. You're quite sensible. Go and have a good rest. Go officially to the Central Chamber of Commerce tomorrow. The mysterious man waved his hand lightly. Yes, I'll take my leave. Si Haishao excitedly took the Meridian Channel conduit pill and kowtowed to the mysterious man. He crawled backward out of the private room. There was already a servant waiting at the door to help him change, shower, and recuperate. After Si Haishao left, the door inside the private room suddenly opened automatically without any warning. The mysterious man's domineering aura dissipated instantly. He kowtowed respectfully to the private room inside, not daring to cross the line. It's settled. He'll officially take office tomorrow. I'll personally supervise him during this period. The mysterious man said respectfully. All right, you may leave. A woman's voice came from inside the private room. Yesterday, after leaving the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi and the two ladies found a clean and tidy restaurant, although it was far from being as high class as the Soaring Sky Pavilion's splendid sun house, and it didn't have spirit energy delicacies that easily cost hundreds of spirit jades. It was just some ordinary dishes that had nothing to do with cultivation. However, it was still very delicious, and it had the warmth of a home. The 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion core disciples had been following the 3 of them, constantly monitoring everyone's movements. With Si Haishao's appearance, they had to be extra vigilant. It would be a dereliction of duty if another blind person came to disturb the mood of the 2 young misses. However, under the strong request of Shangguan Laner and Ning Shuefei, they did not enter the private room. They could only be on standby in the surrounding areas. Only Lin Yi and the 2 women were left in the private room. There was also a little curly bear, who was busy eating and drinking. I didn't dare to ask more last time in a hurry. It turns out to be Miss Ning of West Island. How disrespectful. Regarding the matter of the northernmost island, many thanks for your help. I can't thank you enough. Engrave it in my heart. Lin erased his glass and thanked Ning Shuefei. If I knew you were Lin Yi, I would have saved you even more. This is what I should do. Ning Shuefei's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but look at Shangguan Laner. He thought that she said this because she was Shangguan Laner's best friend. Love me, love my dog. Ning Shuefei smiled slightly. When they were on the northernmost island, she didn't know about the matter between Shangguan Laner and Lin Yi. Her words were referring to her other best friend, Han Jingjing. After the contact on the road just now, she could be sure that this was the Lin Yi that Han Jingjing had been yearning for day and night. However, she didn't want to break the window paper for such a fun thing. It would be good to wait until the time to give them a big surprise. Well, you two don't have to keep me in suspense anymore. Little fella, what happened? Quickly tell me honestly. Shangguan Laner couldn't wait to urge. Lin Yi and Ning Shuefei looked at each other and no longer hid it. They talked about the matter in the northernmost island to her. After listening to the encounter between the two, Shangguan Laner was amazed for a long time. She couldn't help but sigh that the world was really too small. They could even know each other like this. But then she wondered, little junior brother, how did you get injured at that time? Is the northernmost island so chaotic? Yeah, I wanted to ask this question too. Lin Yi, you were injured quite badly at that time. Ning Shuefei said curiously. Although she had a guess, it was just a guess. Lin Yi hesitated for a while, but thinking that these two weren't outsiders and had a close relationship with him, they wouldn't betray him. He lowered his voice and admitted, Miss Ning, you must have heard about what happened that night. Zhang Tianjie died because of a cauldron explosion. Actually, it was my doing. The two women were shocked when they heard this. Zhang Tianjie's status was not much inferior to theirs. His death had caused quite a stir in the past. According to the elders in the family, if it wasn't for the Dan god Zhang Liju personally coming out and confirming that this guy died because of his cauldron explosion, Zhang Dongjue would have sent out the elites of Zhongdao's Dan Hall. They didn't expect that the cause of such a huge incident was Lin Yi. After being stunned for a while, Shangguan Laner suddenly praised him excitedly. Little junior brother, you're really amazing. Zhang Dongjue was someone Grandpa met when he brought me to Zhongdao. He's not a good person. I heard that a lot of girls in Zhongdao were harassed by him. Little junior brother, you're doing the people a favor. Ning Shuefei asked curiously, then why did you kill him? Oh, I know. It must be because he saw that you had so many elixirs that you couldn't buy even if you bought them. So he wanted to rob them. Linny smiled and shook his head. That's not it. Miss Ning should have an impression of my conflict with him. I bid against him at the auction and offended him. He didn't plan on sharing Tian Chan's matter with the two girls. After all, there wasn't a need for it. One more person knowing would mean one more trouble for Tian Chan. It was better not to mention it. Chapter 4066. Right. I said he's a bad guy. Junior brother, you did a good job. Shangguan Laner chimed in. She suddenly paused and pinched the little curly bear's neck, saying, You're a foodie. Why can't you change your bad habit of licking all the dishes first? We haven't touched anything, but the dishes on the table are all covered with your saliva. How can we eat? The little curly bear was caught off guard and choked. As soon as Shangguan Laner loosened her grip, he immediately spat out the food in his mouth all over the table, and then he burped with satisfaction. Lin Yi and the other two looked at each other and were speechless. They stared at the little curly bear for a long time and said helplessly, Let's order another table. I haven't eaten enough. Seeing the little curly bear's innocent expression, Ning Shuefei felt funny and distressed. She quickly helped him out and changed the topic, saying, since you're so familiar with me and little Lon, Lin, why don't you be our tour guide and show us around in the next few days? I've long heard that there are many scenic spots in the North Island. Although I've been here many times before, I always come and go in a hurry and never have a good time. I'd like to, but I'm a newcomer in the Welcome Pavilion. According to the rules, I can't go out at will. Lin said with a wry smile, although he had this eldest senior brother who was now in charge to help him bear the burden and secretly disappear for a while to look for the king of scrap weapons. It was not a big deal. At most, people would think that he was hiding in the cave for closed-door training. However, if he swaggered out with the two young ladies to play, it would be too eye-catching. What should we do? Little Lon, do you have any good ideas? Ning Shuefei turned to ask. Although she was the princess of the West Island, every place had its own rules. She was not the kind of ignorant little girl who took herself as the center of everything and didn't care about the life and death of others. Well, let me think. Shangguan Lena rolled her eyes and patted her head, saying, "It doesn't matter. I've got an idea. As long as my grandfather arranges a position for you, they can't say anything about you." Position? What position? Linny asked with a strange expression. I don't know. Anyway, I will definitely let Grandpa think of a way. This problem will be left to him to worry about. Hee. Shangguan Laner said indifferently. All right. Lin could only nod in agreement speechlessly. As for the casting, he could only put it aside for a couple of days. Anyway, the King of Junk had said that it might not be a bad thing to maintain it for a longer period of time, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Since they were scared by Si Hai Xiao before, the two girls did not have the mood to continue playing today. After having a meal with Lin Yi, he quickly returned under the protection of the 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion Corps disciples. Early the next morning, a transfer order was suddenly sent to the Welcoming Pavilion. Everyone in the Welcoming Pavilion was shocked. The newcomers of the 3 great pavilions were all gathered together to listen to their orders. Everything was done in a very formal manner. There was a deacon who was in charge of conveying the orders of the Elders Guild, who personally appeared and accompanied him. And there was Hu Yunfeng with a pale face. After a meeting of the Elders Guild of the North Island, Lin Yi of the Welcoming Pavilion is appointed as the reception deacon of the West Island. He is in charge of receiving Miss Ning, a guest from the West Island. He is also responsible for all the matters of her travel in the North Island. If she encounters any problems, she can act at her own discretion without asking for additional instructions. The deacon read the transfer order in public. As soon as the words came out, there was an immediate uproar. Even Hu Yunfeng had an indescribable look of astonishment on his face. Reception deacon of the West Island? What kind of position is this? I have never heard of it before. The point was that it was personally appointed by the Elders Guild, and he had the right to act at his own discretion. It didn't sound simple at all. Under the envious eyes of the crowd, Lin Yi received the transfer order, but he was secretly speechless. Shanghai Tianhua, the top tycoon, is really leisurely and carefree. He actually thought of such a unique title for me. It can be said that he took a lot of effort. However, just as Lin Yi took the transfer order and was about to turn around and leave, the deacon suddenly said, "Little brother Lin Yi, wait a minute. I have a private letter from Pavilion Master Shangguan here. Please take it with you." Boom. The crowd was even more excited. Shanghai Tianhua, the pavilion master of the Rising Pavilion, actually gave a private letter to a newcomer of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. The weight of this letter is more enviable than the inexplicable transfer order just now. Damn it, how many generations of good fortune does Lin Yi have? Most of the newcomers were just watching the fun, But Hu Yunfeng, the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, had a pitiful expression, as if he had eaten **T and had to savor it slowly. Shangguan Tianhua was a high and mighty peak-level existence. Even with his status as the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, it was difficult for him to even speak to him face to face, let alone form any sort of relationship with him. Just what had this Lin Yi done to deserve such special treatment from such a powerful figure? Even Hu Yunfeng was in such a state. Kang Mingming, Murongzhen, and the other rivals who regarded Lin Yi as a thorn in their side were so shocked that they couldn't speak for a long time. Although the sun was still shining brightly, their hearts had already fallen into an ice cellar, frozen into a pile of frozen lumps. Lin Yi didn't care about this group of people who were so depressed that they vomited blood. After receiving the private letter from Shanghai Tianhua, he turned around, walked to an empty place, opened it, and read it carefully. Lin Yi, this old man thinks that you're smart and dependable. You have a lot of potential, and this training is a rare opportunity. I hope you'll do your best and protect the princess. Be a qualified personal bodyguard for the island flower. Close master of the island flower? The last sentence in the letter made Lin Yi spit on the spot. He felt that he was born to do this. Wherever he went, he had to do this work. It was like this in the secular world. And now he was on the Heaven Stage Island, but he still couldn't escape this fate. As soon as he finished reading the letter, the gathered newcomers were in an uproar again. Lin Yi looked up and saw Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei, two little beauties with powerful backgrounds, smiling sweetly and waving at him not far away. With the princess of West Island in one hand and the princess of Chongtian Pavilion in the other, looking at the backs of Lin Yi and his companions, people in the welcoming pavilion were completely petrified. They all sighed in their hearts. As a newcomer, he should learn from Lin Yi. He is a real winner in life. If we can't find a strong backer, I think we can give up on Lin Yi. Meng Tong sighed, faintly behind the crowd. Chapter 4067. Just like what Meng Tong had said, at least for now, they were no longer a threat to Lin Yi. Even if they did not give up, they could only swallow their anger for now. Bringing two beauties to tour the North Island, in the eyes of anyone, was a heavenly task. Lin Yi, on the other hand, did not have such dirty thoughts. However, he had been on the Heaven Stage Island for more than half a year, and he had never had such a good time. It could be considered as a rare, relaxing experience after cultivating hard. However, just as Lin Yi was accompanying the two ladies to tour around, a piece of heavy news suddenly spread throughout the North Island, becoming the new topic of conversation after a meal. The former manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Si Haishao, who had molested the two princesses in public, had now become the manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce after he was abused into a cripple. His meridians were all broken, and he was forever removed from his position by the Hong Chamber of Commerce. How could he be promoted so quickly? This Si Haishao doesn't look like much. How could he be so capable? Lin Yi could not help but be puzzled. Such a bad old bastard. There are actually people willing to hire him as a manager. Is this Central Chamber of Commerce sick? Shanghai Laner said angrily. Even if she was simple and did not hold a grudge against Si Haishao, it would be strange for her to be happy when she suddenly heard this kind of news. Ning Xuefei also frowned, but said with some doubt, Central Chamber of Commerce? This name sounds familiar. It seems to be in the limelight recently. I don't know why, but I also feel the same way. Lin Yi also frowned. He did not know what Central Chamber of Commerce was, but this word made him feel like he had heard it before. Although the three of them were surprised and puzzled, they were having fun and did not pay too much attention to it. Si Haishao had already paid a heavy price previously. As long as he did not provoke them again, He was just an unrelated passerby. At the same time, the two brothers Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmen were beating their chests and stamping their feet. What a waste of alcohol. See, Haishao had such a good backer. He had just gotten a little closer to him, but now he was pushed to the bottom. Not only had they lost a backer, but they had also been severely reprimanded by their uncle, Nantian Aurora, in his letter. Si Haishao was someone he had paid a huge price to finally raise to his current position. Just because these two fellows had brought him to a brothel to have fun, they ended up playing with him until he became an idiot with overflowing sperm. This was great. All his previous efforts had gone to waste. He had wasted an astronomical amount of spirit jades. Not even a sound was heard. Just as the two brothers were regretting their decision, they did not expect to receive such a piece of news. Si Haishao had miraculously regained his position in the blink of an eye. When Nan Tianba and the Southern Heaven Gate received the news, they immediately made their way to the newly opened Central Chamber of Commerce. As expected, they saw the high-spirited Si Haishao. Manager Si, we've finally found you. We haven't been able to find you for the past 2 days, and we've been extremely worried. Nan Tianba and the Nan Tianmen brothers rushed over with faces full of joy. Humph, were you really looking for me everywhere? Si Haishao's expression turned cold. The miserable experience from before had already become a shadow that he could not get rid of for the rest of his life. That was his most desperate and helpless moment. However, these two people did not show up from the beginning to the end. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. How could he not bear a grudge? Seeing this, the two brothers hurriedly explained, "It's true, it's true. Speaking of this, it's all our fault. We shouldn't have brought you to that kind of place to get drunk. Otherwise, such a big thing wouldn't have happened. Actually, after sending you back to the Hong Family Chamber of Commerce the day before yesterday, the two of us also drank ourselves into oblivion. When we woke up, it was already yesterday evening. When we heard that something had happened to you, we searched everywhere for traces of you. However, we couldn't find you." Hearing the two of them say this, Si Haishao's expression became much more relaxed. He had already left with the mysterious person yesterday evening. It was normal for the two brothers to say that they couldn't find him. "All right then, this old man will believe you for now. This matter will be over for now. Fortunately, this old man had the help of a benefactor. Otherwise, the two of you would probably have to collect this old man's corpse." Si Haishao was half afraid and half glad as he said this. "Yes, yes, shopkeeper Si, you're truly blessed by the heavens." Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate wiped away the cold sweat on their foreheads. They had finally tricked this old thing. With their way of doing things, they would always support the strong and trample on the weak. When Si Haishao was successful, they naturally wanted to get closer to him. As for whether Si Haishao came to look for him when he was in trouble, only they themselves would know. Seeing Si Haishao sitting on a specially made wheelchair, Southern Heavenly Gate asked with a face full of concern, "Shopkeeper Si, how are your injuries? Do you want us to get some healing medicine for you?" "No need. This old man's injuries aren't too serious. I only broke a few meridians. I've already taken a 5th grade meridian unblocking pill. It's only a matter of time before I recover. You don't have to worry about me." Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate nodded and said, "Although these injuries can be healed, this old man must take revenge. Forget about the two girls. That Lin Yi is the main culprit that caused this old man's tragedy. If I don't take revenge, I'm not a man." Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate nodded and said, "That's right. We must find a way to kill that brat Lin Yi. He's too despicable. However, I heard that he's always with Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuefei. He's also surrounded by the 5 experts from the Rising Sky Pavilion. It's not a good time to make a move on him. The future is long. Isn't it just a few more days? This old man still has this much patience. Si Haixiao's eyes were filled with hatred. He then said, "This old man has made a comeback, but I haven't had the time to celebrate. Apart from the 2 of you, I don't know anyone else on the North Island. Why don't we go for a drink and have some fun?" Since shopkeeper C has given the order, we wouldn't dare to disobey. The 2 of them immediately smiled and said. The 3 of them immediately found a top-notch restaurant and chatted happily. However, this time, Si Haixiao had learned his lesson. He didn't dare to mention anything about finding women again. After all, he was forced to take the poison. If he fooled around all day and didn't do anything serious, he would be finished if he angered the mysterious person behind him. You 2 are the local bullies of the North Island, so you have a deep understanding of all aspects of the North Island. I have a question to ask you. I don't know if you have ever heard of people with potential but evil intentions? Si Haixiao said, weighing his words. Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate were stunned. They then blurted out, "Isn't that Yuzha?" Chapter 4068. Si Haixiao could not help but curl his lips. Yuzha had already disappeared, and not even a shadow could be found. What was the use of mentioning him? He continued, "Is there anyone else other than him?" Southern Heavenly Gate frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he slapped his thigh and said, "Yes, there's someone called Kong Ming Ming in the welcoming pavilion. Some time ago, because I suspected that he was Lin Heir, I specially observed this person. He's very sinister and full of evil tricks, but he has some brains. Rumor has it that this kid is vengeful. Even when the newcomers fight in the arena, he will use underhanded methods. Many people have been tricked by him." "Oh, that's interesting." Si Haixiao's eyes lit up when he heard this. Southern Heavenly Gate laughed. "What's even better is that this guy is the same as us. He is also a mortal enemy of Lin Yi. His hatred is not shallow." Si Haixiao was even more satisfied. He immediately said, "That's great. Then I'll trouble you to arrange for this person to meet me. I have great use for him." Although Southern Heavenly Gate did not understand, since Si Haixiao had said it, he had no reason to refuse. He immediately set off for the welcoming pavilion. During this period of time, Kong Ming Ming had not been doing well. It could even be said that it was the worst period of time since he came to the Heavenly Stage Island. Not only was he defeated by Lin Yi last time, but now that he had lost his backer, Su Lingchong, as a new deacon, he had become somewhat awkward. The newcomers no longer took him seriously, and it was basically impossible for him to advance further. Even the pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, had begun to distance himself from him. Recently, all the big and small matters had been handed over to the newcomers to manage, giving him fewer and fewer instructions. And for a position like his, once there were no missions, it meant that he had no power. He was not far from becoming a transparent person. He could only watch helplessly as Lin Yi latched onto a super thick thigh like Shanghai Tianhua, while his own situation was deteriorating. If this continued, it was almost certain that he would be stepped on by Lin Yi. Kong Ming Ming was currently surrounded by a sense of crisis. However, he had no idea how to deal with it. Coincidentally, the Southern Heavenly Gate had come knocking on his door. It was as if someone had sent him a pillow, just as he was about to doze off. However, as much as Kong Ming Ming believed that this was a rare opportunity, he still called Pin Liang along for safety's sake. If something happened, he'd at least have someone to cover for him. Pin Liang, on the other hand, wanted to see what these people were up to. He agreed without hesitation and followed them. He brought the 2 of them to the restaurant. To put it nicely, the meeting between Kong Ming Ming and Si Haishao was like old friends at first sight. To put it bluntly, they were birds of the same feather. After Kong Ming Ming's flattery, the atmosphere at the table immediately became harmonious, and the two sides talked happily. I heard that you guys have a grudge with Lin Yi as well. Si Haishao finally brought up the matter at hand. That's right, shopkeeper Si. You don't know? Lin Yi and I have a blood feud, and so does brother Zhong. Our grudge can't even be finished in 3 days and 3 nights. Kong Ming Ming said bitterly, "That's perfect. We're on the same side. The enemy of an enemy is a natural ally. Zhao Ming, if you're willing to surrender to me, that's fine. If you want me to protect you in the future, that's fine too, but you have to do something first. You need to prove your loyalty to us, right?" Si Haishao squinted his eyes and smiled. Kong Ming Ming was overjoyed when he heard this, but he was a little troubled. I won't hide it from you, Manager Si. A while ago, we took the initiative to find trouble with Lin Yi. We wanted to eliminate him in one fell swoop, but the result wasn't what we wanted. He dodged it. Seniors Nen can also testify to this. Si Haishao glanced at Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate. Seeing the two brothers nod their heads, he said indifferently, "Since you've already failed, it can't be considered a proof of loyalty. Since you guys could mess with him once before, you can naturally mess with him again now. What do you think?" But these days, he's been with the two misses. If we want to deal with him face to face, it won't be easy. After all, we're just rookies in the welcoming pavilion. Doing this is no different from courting death. I hope Manager Si can understand this. Kong Ming Ming said with a bitter face, "That may be the case, but if we can't deal with him face to face, can't you think of another way? If you don't even have this much ability, even if I accept you, what's the use?" Si Haishao curled his lips and said, "This old thing, he wouldn't release the eagle until he saw the rabbit." Kong Ming Ming thought to himself. Then he thought of something and said, "I've thought of a way. Last time we went to mess with Lin Yi, he seemed to be forging. Now that he's busy playing with the two misses, he definitely won't have time to care about that place. What do you think, Manager Si?" Si Haishao's eyes lit up when he heard this. He stroked his beard and said, "Not bad. This is a rare opportunity. Once something like forging starts, it can't be stopped. Even if he's not here, the forging will still continue. If you guys take this opportunity to mess with him, even if you can't do anything to him, you'll still make his heart ache. Then it's decided. As long as you do this well, it'll be your proof of loyalty. In the future, I'll take good care of you. You'll be able to achieve great success." "Okay, I'll leave now. Just wait for my good news, Manager Si," Kong Ming Ming said excitedly. He turned around and left with Zhong Pingliang. He'd suffered a huge loss at Lin Yi's hands last time. This was the perfect time to get back at him and make the guy feel heartache. He didn't have to fight Lin Yi head-on anyway, so there was no risk at all. On the way, Zhong Pingliang was worried. He wanted to send a message to Lin Yi, but he didn't even know where Lin Yi was. He could only follow Kong Ming Ming and play it by ear. When they reached the cave entrance, Kong Ming Ming jumped in impatiently, with Zhong Pingliang following closely behind. At this moment, King of Junk was studying the forging notes his Shifu had left him. Although the accident from before seemed to be safe and there was still room to salvage the situation, King of Junk was truly scared out of his wits. While Lin Yi was collecting materials, he had to calm down and review his forging plan from start to finish. He had to review the notes, and perhaps he'd be able to find his blind spots and prevent similar mistakes from happening again. It was because he was too focused that he didn't notice Kong Xiaoming and Kong Xiaoming sneaking in. It was only when the two appeared behind him that he finally reacted. "Who's there?" The King of Junk was shocked and jumped up from the ground. Chapter 4069. Damn, when did Lin E get such a helper? Fortunately, I was cautious enough to prepare the alchemic firebomb in advance. Otherwise, today's effort would have been in vain. Kong Ming Ming spat with lingering fear. Pinliang, on the other hand, was speechless as he looked at the trash king on the ground. He didn't even know that the two of them had snuck in like that. Wasn't this guy a little too unwary? He was knocked out by Kong Ming Ming with just one move, and Pinliang didn't even have a chance to sneak up on him. While Pinliang was thinking, Kong Xiaoming had already stepped past the king of junk and reached the edge of the pool. He looked at the strange lump of metal in the middle of the pool and smiled coldly. This is the weapon Lin E is crafting, right? I heard he even asked Hong Zhong to get him a lot of valuable materials. Let's take this thing away today. Don't you think it'll hurt him to death? Before Pinliang could say anything, Kong Xiaoming reached into the pool and fished out the lump of metal. The pool looked as calm as a pool of stagnant water, so there wasn't much of a threat to it. However, right after that, Kong Ming Ming's expression changed abruptly. Roar! A hoarse and miserable howl instantly penetrated the entire cave. Even the birds in the forest outside were startled and flew away. Fish, accompanied by a scalp-numbing sizzling sound, a layer of skin on Kong Ming Ming's hand was burned off. His hands swelled like carrots at a speed visible to the naked eye. He hurriedly let go, and the iron lump fell on his feet with a bang. Another layer of skin was burned off. Don't be fooled by the forging pool's lukewarm appearance, as if it was no different from an ordinary pool. However, the temperature inside was not something a human could endure. Even if he was a foundation establishment expert, his body was still made of flesh and blood. In the eyes of experts, Kong Ming Ming's action was purely a case of an old man hanging himself. He was tired of living. It's so hot. It was scalding. It was scalding. Pinliang didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he watched Kong Ming Ming rolling on the ground. He was still thinking of a way to deal with this situation. He didn't think that the idiot would fall into the trap of his own accord. This was good. He didn't even have to think. Without another word, Pinliang grabbed Kong Ming Ming's ankle and dragged him out of the cave. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Kong Ming Ming's screams finally subsided. He looked at Pinliang and said weakly, "What the hell was that? Why was it so hot?" Pinliang couldn't help but laugh inwardly. What else could it be? What? Boss Lin Ming 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 hand. You even dared to use your hands to directly take the things in the forging pool. Even with your stupid intelligence, it was truly shocking. But on the surface, Pinliang's eyes rolled as he analyzed. Xiaoming, I suspect that this is a trick Lin prepared for us. He used to do this all the time, pretending to be lax to lure us in. Think about it. After what happened last time, this place is obviously exposed. If it were you, would you still stay here to forge? Kong Ming Ming paused and shook his head decisively. Of course not. If it were me, I would have moved a long time ago. I wouldn't stay here and be targeted by others. That's why he should have moved a long time ago. That's why he made this piece of junk to lure us here to destroy it. This is exactly what he wants. Pinliang said confidently. That's right. I was suspecting that this piece of junk doesn't look like a weapon at all. It's a trap. Lin E is really cunning. He even got someone to guard this place, making it sound like this piece of junk is something good. I wouldn't have fallen for it otherwise. Kong Ming Ming cursed angrily. He was the same type of person. When he analyzed Lin E, he naturally had the worst of intentions. He didn't know that he was the one who brought this upon himself. There was only one real reason. He was too stupid. Seeing that Kong Ming Ming had taken the initiative to explain himself, Pinliang happily agreed. The two returned to the restaurant and reported to see Haishao. Si Haishao was stunned when he saw that Kong Mingming had bandages all over his body. He looked like he was seriously injured. You were beaten up by Lin Yi? No, Manager Si, I was tricked by him. Kong Mingming started complaining with tears and snot. In summary, it wasn't that he didn't do his best. It was just that Lin Yi was too cunning. After listening to Kong Mingming's story, Si Haishao, Nantiamba, and the others looked at each other. But thinking about it carefully, Kong Ming had his reasons for being tricked this time. If he didn't make Kong Ming hand over his proof of loyalty, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to trick people like this no matter how cunning he was. Fine. Although you didn't succeed this time, even if you didn't make any contributions, you still worked hard. This old man has seen your sincerity. Consider this your proof of allegiance. In the future, this old man will naturally protect you. Si Haishao said coolly. Kong Mingming was overjoyed. He patted his chest and said, "Thank you, Manager Si. If you need anything in the future, I will go through fire and water without hesitation." Very good. Let's see what you do next. Si Haishao nodded in satisfaction before turning to Pin Liang. Xiaoming is under me now, and I've acknowledged him. But you, Pin Liang, I can't just take you in just because you're Xiaoming's friend. You have to contribute something, or you'll have to be put on probation. Pin Liang nodded in satisfaction before turning to Pin Liang. Pin Liang thought about it and pretended to be troubled. Manager Si, I also went to destroy things just now. It's just that Xiaoming was in front. He was scalded the moment he picked up the metal lump. I could only save him first. I didn't have a chance to show off. That may be the case, but I treat everyone equally. Xiaoming suffered so much before I accepted him. If you want me to accept you as well, you can't have no contributions at all. Si Haishao shook his head. That's right. This old man wasn't easy to fool. Pin Liang was secretly panicking. These people were obviously targeting Boss Lin Yi. If he didn't find a way to sneak in now, it would be very difficult to get inside information about them in the future. Suddenly, Pin Liang's eyes lit up. Right, Manager Si, aren't you looking for people with bad intentions but potential? I happen to know one, and it's a rare beauty. Chapter 4070. As expected. As soon as Si Haishao heard the word beauty, although he was still sitting in a wheelchair and had yet to recover from his injuries, he became visibly excited. He quickly asked, "Oh, what beauty? Quickly tell this old man." Zhong Pingliang smiled and said, "Her name is Murongzhen. She's a newcomer in the welcome pavilion, just like us. She also has a grudge against Lin Yi. She was with us when we went to deal with Lin Yi. There's such a thing. Isn't she a natural ally?" Si Haishao was even more elated. He immediately said, "Pin Liang, hurry up and invite this Lady Morong over. If she can satisfy me, I will remember that you have done a great deed." "Got it," Pin Liang answered and left, leaving Kong Xiaoming looking like he'd just eaten shit. During this time, Murongzhen had always been Kong Mingming's favorite. Although he failed to deal with Lin Yi, he was still satisfied with Murongzhen's service. This coquettish woman was much better than ordinary women. She was also a master at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment. Conquering her in bed was a different kind of pleasure. But now, Zhong Pingliang wanted to introduce her to Si Haishao. F***CK. I didn't take the initiative to share with him. Does he have to discuss me like this? Kong Xiaoming cursed at Pin Liang in his mind, but he didn't dare show it on his face. It was pointless to say anything else now that things had come to this. He could only swallow his pride and accept it. Soon, Murongzhen's coquettish figure appeared before everyone's eyes. Si Haishao almost couldn't hold himself back when he saw her natural seduction. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and hurriedly said, "This old man is Si Haishao. I'm the manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce. I've long heard of Miss Morong's beauty. You're indeed a beauty. How pitiful. Si Haishao couldn't be blamed for losing his composure. He was a lustful man. He had no resistance to women's charms. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such a stupid mistake. Since he came to the North Island, he had only been taken to a brothel by Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmen once, and the women he played with were just ordinary women. Morong Zhen, a naturally seductive expert in the foundation-building realm. There was no comparison at all. Manager C really knows how to speak, praising me until I'm embarrassed. Morong Zhen pretended to be shy as she covered her mouth and smiled. She then glanced at the crowd from the corner of her eyes and said in a coquettish manner, I'm tired from walking such a long distance on such a hot day. Shopkeeper C, are you so heartless to not even arrange a seat for him? As a veteran, Si Haishao understood Morong Zhen's seductive gaze. He gestured to the southern heavenly gate beside him to give up a seat and said with a lecherous smile, Lady Morong, you must be tired from your journey. Why don't you sit next to me? This seat is specially prepared for you. Manager C, you really know how to dote on me. I'm embarrassed. Morong Zhen smiled tenderly and immediately sat down beside Si Haishao. Her petite body naturally leaned close to him. Seeing Si Haishao's lecherous expression, Kang Mingming couldn't help but curse in his mind. Morong Zhen really was a slut that could be slept with by anyone. She even threw herself at an old man like him. She had no morals at all. Kang Mingming, however, had forgotten that Morong Zhen had slept with him back then. She was only interested in his backer. For this kind of woman, Qin Feng was not a match for her. For a woman like her, her body was just a capital. As long as the opportunity was right, she could use it for a trade at any time. Pin Liang, I'm very pleased that you were willing to introduce Lady Morong to me this time. I'll remember that you've done a great job. Work hard in the future. I have high hopes for you. Si Haishao praised Zhong Pinliang as he enjoyed Morong Zhen's flirtatious behavior. This time, Kang Mingming was even more depressed. It seemed like Si Haishao favored Zhong Pinliang even more, and he himself had to settle for second place. As for Morong Zhen, there was even less of a chance for him to compete. Accompanying Ning Xuefei and Shangguan Laner to play around, Lin Yi, the island beauty's personal expert, was in a much better mood than Kang Mingming. However, he didn't completely forget about his business during the play. He brought the two girls to the Hong Merchant Association again. This time, without Si Haishao's obstruction, Lin Yi successfully bought most of the supplementary materials listed by King of Junk. He even got one of the two rare materials that King of Junk mentioned that required luck. However, the last one was nowhere to be found. The appearance-growing mushroom was a spiritual medicine that looked very similar to Ganoderma. At the same time, it was a rare material for forging weapons. According to King of Junk, the 5 elements during forging were different from the normal 5 elements. The process of forging weapons was the reverse of the 5 elements. Therefore, the key to perfectly harmonizing the attributes of the materials depended on the appearance-growing mushroom. However, the appearance-growing mushroom was as rare as the heart-devouring exquisite grass. More importantly, once it was harvested, it had a very short lifespan and would easily wither and become useless. Therefore, unless a special reservation was made, even a large merchant association like the Hong Merchant Association wouldn't be able to stock it. It was the same for other merchant associations. Fortunately, Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. After making a reservation at the Hong Merchant Association, he specifically went to find Chun Heihu and asked him to help him buy it. It was only then that Ning Xuefei finally realized what was going on. She asked doubtfully, Lin Yi, so you're not a waiter from the Hong Merchant Association? Of course not. The newcomers in the welcome pavilion don't work part-time outside. As for the reason why I went to the northernmost island with Hong Zhong last time, it was only because I had a good relationship with him. I never said I was a waiter from the Hong Merchant Association. Linny shrugged. Then why did you ask me to ask Hong Zhong for elixirs last time? I thought you were from the Hong Merchant Association. Ning Shuefei pouted. Lin Yi smiled and said, Actually, I refined those elixirs myself. However, it was true that he was from the Hong Merchant Association. Ah, is this for real? So many elixirs were refined by you? Ning Shuefei's eyes widened. He, at that time, the Hong Merchant Association was pushed aside by a few other merchant associations. They couldn't bring out any decent items for auction, so I helped Hong Zhong. That's how I got those elixirs. Linny explained lightly. Chapter 4071. At this time, Shangguan Laner interrupted and said, So, the highest grade elixir that you gave me as a birthday gift last time was also refined by you, junior brother? Yes. Linny nodded and admitted. There was no need to hide this kind of thing from the two of them. You can even refine the highest grade elixir so easily. I didn't expect that you, Lin Yi, are such a powerful alchemist. Ning Shuefei's face was full of admiration. She suddenly said, By the way, I heard that there is a kind of elixir that can directly improve one's strength. It's called the Foundation Establishment Elixir. You can directly upgrade after eating it, unlike the Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Elixir, which can only be used to break through the barrier. I wonder if you can refine it. You also know about the Foundation Establishment Elixir? Lin Yi was slightly surprised. Looking at the Heaven Stage Island, the Foundation Establishment Elixir was an extremely rare and precious elixir. Even in a big chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it was rare. That's right. Ning Shuefei proudly raised her neck. This is a good friend of mine told me about it. I can try, but I can't guarantee that I will succeed. Lin Yi did not make any promises. That's great. Ning Shuefei suddenly became excited and said, I have collected a lot of materials for refining the Foundation Establishment Elixir. Let's refine it together. Then, after refining, the three of us will divide it. But I want 2 portions, and I have to bring one for my good friend. Okay, no problem. Linny nodded and agreed. Since Hong Zhong went to Middle Island, he lost a reliable channel to purchase the heart-devouring exquisite grass. In the future, if he wanted to refine more Foundation Establishment Elixir, he could only wait for the news from Chun Heihu. He was a little worried about this recently. He did not expect that Ning Shuefei would actually help him in his time of need. But according to Lin Yi's estimations, even with Ning Shuefei's high status as the daughter of the West Island's master, she wouldn't be able to collect too many ingredients in private. After all, the heart-devourer exquisite grass was extremely rare, and it wasn't something that could be collected easily. However, after a few days, Ning Shuefei sent someone to deliver a large basket full of materials. This really shocked Lin Yi. After a rough estimation, there were actually at least 10 sets of materials inside. Even with Lin Yi's mental fortitude, he was still shocked by this scene for a long time. Comparisons were odious. Lin Yi couldn't help but marvel. How did Ning Shuefei collect all these? This time, Lin Yi could not help but feel a surge of emotions. After some preparation, he was about to start refining the pill. However, the 2 ladies, Ning Shuefei and Shangguan Laner, came to him at this time and said in unison, We want to watch you concoct pills. We want to protect you. This sudden bizarre request simply made Lin Yi not know whether to laugh or cry. Of course, he knew that the 2 of them did not have any malicious intentions and were sincerely good to him. They didn't mean to harm him. They wanted to see him concoct pills purely for fun, but if they did that, the secret of his divine armament cauldron would be exposed. After pondering for a long time, Lin Yi finally decided to agree and warned, "That's fine, but you can't tell anyone about me concocting pills. Can you guarantee that?" Of course, of course. This is a secret between the three of us." Ning Xuefei and Shangguan Laner immediately high-fived excitedly to celebrate. "Little junior brother, your cave residence is too small. Let's go to my Hualan house to refine pills. It's more spacious there, and no one will disturb us," Shangguan Laner suggested. "All right," Lin Yi nodded. In terms of external environment, Hualan House was the #1 residence in Soaring Pavilion after all, and it was indeed more reliable than his cave residence. Carrying a large basket full of elixirs, the three of them came to Hualan House and immediately entered the practice room, specially for Shangguan Laner to cultivate. They began to prepare to start concocting pills. Seeing Lin Yi take out the divine armament cauldron, Ning Xuefei's eyes suddenly lit up, and she said in surprise, "Lin Yi, your alchemy furnace seems to be a little different from others." Although she was not an alchemist, she had seen others concoct pills before. However, she had never seen such a strange part like a tablet on someone else's alchemy furnace. Of course, she didn't know that it was a tablet. Lin Yi smiled and said, "The divine armament cauldron can automatically concoct pills. It's the only one in the world, and you can't see it anywhere else." After searching for the formula for the foundation building pill and putting the elixirs in, the tablet said, "Please wait a moment. Jing Jing is calculating the time and temperature curve for Lin Yi and will automatically generate the alchemy script." Wow, that's amazing. Ning Xuefei's eyes turned into little stars. Her admiration for her best friend, Han Jingjing, was like a surging river. She was even more confident about the automatic casting mechanism that Han Jingjing was now developing. However, Shanghai Laner asked in surprise, "Little junior brother, who is Jing Jing? Is she the name of your alchemy furnace?" "No, she's my girlfriend in the secular world," Lin Yi said with a warm smile. It wasn't just Han Jingjing. All the important women around him made him feel warmth from the bottom of his heart, and he was reluctant to part with them. "Oh, junior brother, it turns out that you have a girlfriend. You never told me about it." Shangguan Laner's eyes flashed, and then she asked, "Is she still in the secular world?" Lin Yi shook his head and sighed. "No. She also came to the Heaven Stage Island, but she was not transmitted to the North Island. I don't know which island and which sect she is in now." Since the last time he accidentally met Tian Chan on the extreme North Island, Lin Yi had been worried about this problem. Even Tian Chan had encountered such a big trouble. With Han Jingjing's strength, it should be more difficult for her to adapt to the complicated environment of the Heaven Stage Island than Tian Chan. He didn't know how she was now. "Hey, Fei Fei can help you. She is the real princess of the West Island. She may not know other places, but if your girlfriend happens to be in the West Island, she will be able to find it." "Fei Fei, am I right?" Shanghai Laner suggested. When Lin Yi heard this, he suddenly had hope. He turned his head and looked at Ning Xuefei expectantly. Han Jingjing was a woman. According to the situation that most of the female cultivators on the Heaven Stage Island were concentrated in the West Island, the possibility of her being transmitted to the West Island was at least more than 60%. "Okay, I'll ask someone when I go back," Ning Xuefei promised vaguely. She did not directly tell them about Han Jingjing's current situation. She wanted to give them a big surprise. Chapter 4072. The whereabouts of Han Jingjing, Rock Candy, Sydney, Tian Chan, Song Ling Rui, Wang Xinyan, and the others were a big concern for him. Even if he couldn't meet them for the time being, if he could know their whereabouts and current situation, he could be relieved. As for the others, Lin Yi originally wanted to let Ning Xue inquire about them, but then he thought it was not good to inquire so much, and Ning Xue must have sent someone to inquire about them. It would not be good if they were targeted by someone with ulterior motives. Why are you calling me Miss Ning again? Didn't I say that I am the same as little Lan? You should call me little senior sister Fei Fei. Ning Xue said angrily. Well, okay, little senior sister Fei Fei. Lin Yi quickly surrendered. That's more like it, hee. Ning Xue stuck out her tongue proudly. Back to business, Lin Yi immediately began to refine the foundation establishment pill. To be on the safe side, he did not put all 10 sets of materials in it, but divided them into 2 batches. The divine armament cauldron also had a maximum tolerance limit. With the previous experience of alchemy, Lin Yi had long been familiar with this. There was no unexpected situation in the process of alchemy this time. In addition to the time taken a little longer than usual, the only thing that surprised Lin Yi was the last out of the furnace. Although there were only 10 sets of materials, the 2 furnaces added up to a total of 14 foundation establishment pills, each of which was of the best quality. This result really shocked Lin Yi himself, not to mention Ning Xue and Shangguan Laner. At this moment, they looked at Lin Yi as if they were looking at a monster. Their watery eyes were full of admiration. Lin Yi was a little embarrassed by their gazes. He shrugged and said, "The main thing is that the materials are good, and the quality is rare. It's normal to have these more." Shangguan Laner had no concept of these things, but Ning Xue was imperceptibly influenced and had a good understanding of alchemy. When she heard this, she was surprised and said, "Normal." 2 furnaces refined a total of 14 best quality foundation establishment pills. Was this still considered normal? Lin Yi, you're too humble. Even the pill god Zhang Liju wouldn't be able to do that, right? Little senior sister Fei Fei is too kind. I'm just a newcomer. How can I be compared to Master Zhang? Lin Yi smiled faintly and waved his hand. His current level of alchemy was all thanks to this cheap master of his that he had never met before. According to the agreement, the refined foundation building pills were divided among the 3 of them. Ning Xue took 6 pills, and 3 of them were for her good friend. Shanghai Laner took 3 and left the remaining 5 for Lin Yi. I only need 3. You can have the other 2. Lin Yi refused. He knew that the 2 girls didn't like to train. If they wanted to increase their strength, they could only rely on elixirs. Taking 1 more foundation building pill would increase their strength, and it wasn't a bad thing for the 2 girls. After all, even if they had a strong background, there would always be times when they had to rely on themselves. Just like when Shanghai Laner was kidnapped. However, Shangguan Lan shook her head repeatedly and said, I don't need so much. I don't need to be too strong. If I improve too quickly, I won't be able to protect myself. If I increase too fast, Grandpa will suspect me. I don't want him to know about our secret. Ning Xue said matter-of-factly, You made these. It's all your work to be able to produce so many foundation building pills. The extra 2 should have been yours. Although she said that, Lin Yi still felt guilty and said, Otherwise, give these 2 to your friend. Just give these 2 to your friend. If I'm not wrong, these elixir ingredients were prepared by him, right? This was not difficult to infer. Ning Xue was a blacksmith, not an alchemist. Normally, even if she knew about the existence of foundation building pills, she wouldn't specially prepare so many foundation building pills. This was not something that could be bought casually. She definitely doesn't want it. I'll make the decision for her and give it to you. Don't be so wishy-washy and pushy. Ning Xue decided. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel strange. Foundation building pills were rare elixirs that could only be found by luck. How good was the relationship between Ning Xuefei and her friend for her to make the decision for him? But thinking about it, they should be super close friends who were like sisters. Since it had come to this, Lin Yi couldn't refuse anymore. He could only choose to accept it. He owed her a favor and could only think of a way to make it up to her in the future. At this time, Shanghai laners suddenly suggested excitedly, since it has been distributed, then let's take it together now. NN, this is a good idea. Let's refine elixirs together and break through together. Ning Xuefei raised both of her hands in agreement. Foundation building pills didn't have any side effects. It didn't matter where it was taken. Lin Yi didn't need to dampen their spirits on this kind of thing. So he nodded and said, "Okay, I have no problem." The three of them immediately began to adjust their state. They took the newly refined foundation building pills one after another and focused on breaking through to a higher realm. Every peak of the foundation building realm was a threshold that was extremely difficult to cross. Last time on the extreme North Island, Lin Yi didn't need the help of elixirs and directly broke through to the middle stage of the foundation building realm. But if he wanted to break through to the peak of the middle stage of the foundation building realm now, the difficulty increased not by 1 or 2 times, but by 10 times, 20 times, or even 30 times. However, for this attempt to break through, Lin Yi was still full of confidence because he now had a total of 5 foundation building pills in his hands. Looking at the whole Heaven Stage Island, even a young master with a deep background didn't have such an exaggerated capital. In a spurt of energy, he took 4 foundation building pills in succession, leaving only the last one as a reserve. This attempt to break through could be said to be a real big deal. For Lin Yi, time passed slowly, and when Lin Yi opened his eyes again, a whole day and night had passed. In his eyes, a frightening light flashed and disappeared, and his vigorous and majestic aura was slowly withdrawn. In just a day, Lin Yi gave people the feeling that he had been reborn. Previously, when he was at the peak of the middle stage of the foundation building realm, Lin Yi's aura was strong and sharp, like a sharp sword being unsheathed. Now, his aura had become more vigorous and majestic, but it was no longer so aggressive. It had become a lot more reserved and deep, like a sharp sword being sheathed. Even if there was only a trace of sharpness left, it was still enough to shock people. The feeling of the peak of the late stage of the foundation building realm is not bad. Lin Yi slowly exhaled with satisfaction. Chapter 4073. This kind of thing, if spread out, could shock a large number of people's jaws. No matter how high the talent potential was, even with the help of the best elixirs, the cultivation road could only go up step by step. Upgrading 2 levels in a row was not unique, but it was also rare in the world. Lin Yi's heaven-defying performance, which no one knew about, could be summed up. Other than the powerful effects of the 4 supreme-grade foundation building pills, the most important factor was his hard work in his daily training. Only by accumulating strength could one become a true king. Feeling the almost qualitative change of the full true qi around him, Lin Yi even couldn't help but feel that with his current strength, if he faced a master like Zheng Tianjie again, he should have the strength to fight head-on. Zheng Tianjie was a master of Gold Core stage. Even if he was only in the early stage of Gold Core, he was completely superior to all the masters of Foundation Establishment stage. Foundation Establishment and Gold Core were 2 completely different concepts. According to the common understanding of the world, even the strongest Foundation Establishment peak, it was impossible to be a direct opponent of Gold Core stage, even if this person was an alchemist. Between the Heaven stage peak and the early stage of Foundation Establishment, there might be a gap in strength. After all, from Heaven stage to Foundation Establishment, there was a threshold of change. If one was not adapted, it was possible to be defeated. But Goldcore was different. However, Lin Yi didn't have such a feeling at all. If he hadn't fought with a master of Goldcore stage, it would have been fine. But now he really felt that with his current strength, he would not lose to Zheng Tianjie in a head-on battle. In front of the Foundation establishment stage, whether Goldcore stage was really an invincible legend, Lin Yi had a strong hunch that maybe he would be able to personally verify it soon. After Lin Yi, Shangguan Laner and Ning Xuefei also completed their breakthroughs. Shanghai Laner had broken through to the middle stage of Foundation establishment long ago with the help of Foundation Building Pill and the personal guidance of Shanghai Tianhua. Now, she was promoted again. She became a master of the peak middle stage of Foundation establishment. As for Ning Xuefei, although the Princess of West Island also doesn't like to cultivate, her strength progress is no less than that of Shangguan Laner. Now she is also at the peak of the middle stage of Foundation establishment. From refining pills to breaking through, the three of them stayed in the room for an entire day and night, not taking a single step out of the room. When they finally opened the door and walked out, the 5 core disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion, who were ordered to protect the 2 young ladies, looked at Lin Yi with a different expression. 1 against 2. And 2 princesses at that. This brat was too awesome to be able to pick up girls to this extent. Even if he didn't do anything else in this life, his future would still be limitless. Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei didn't notice the strange look in everyone's eyes. Only Lin Yi grinned awkwardly. He seemed to have done something that made these people's imagination run wild. As his strength increased, in Lin Yi's eyes, the originally unfathomable masters of Goldcore stage are no longer so unreachable. These masters also have emotions, and they also have a burning heart for gossip. He can only hope that they don't spread this matter. Otherwise, Lin Yi will be pushed to the teeth of the storm again. With nothing to do, after Lin Yi went out, he took the 2 girls to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, wanting to see the news of the life mushroom. However, as soon as he walked through the door of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the familiar figure inside made Lin Yi's footsteps stop, and then he said happily, "Elder Hong, when did you come back?" Seeing Lin Yi, Hong Zhong also looked happy. He quickly greeted him and looked him up and down. He said in amazement, "Young hero Lin, it's been a long time. You have been reborn again. This speed of improvement of your strength has truly broadened this old man's horizons. Congratulations." "Grandpa Hong, you only saw junior brother, but didn't you see us?" Shanghai Laner came up behind him and said with a smile, "Ha, little Lan, no matter who I miss, I can't miss you, little girl," Hong Zhong said with a smile. Then he turned to look at Ning Xuefei and saluted, "You must be Miss Ning of West Island. I've heard a lot about you. Come on, please come upstairs." "Just call me Fei Fei, Grandpa Hong," Ning Xuefei said with a sweet smile. After inviting the 3 of them to the private room upstairs, Hong Zhong immediately asked people to set up a banquet. After exchanging greetings and catching up with each other, he personally apologized to Ning Xuefei and Shanghai Laner on behalf of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. But the 2 women didn't care about it at all. Even if they held a grudge, they would settle it with Si Haishao, not with the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Then Hong Zhong told Lin Yi the reason why he came back to the North Island this time. "To tell you the truth, I came back to the North Island on my own initiative. Si Haishao made such a big scandal, so I had to come back to clean up the mess. Now I'm the vice president and also the manager of the North Island branch." Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he wondered, "Elder Hong, with your connections in the North Island, you are indeed the best candidate to clean up the mess. But why does it sound like a demotion to be the manager of the branch?" Normally, if Hong Zhong really came here to clean up the mess, he only needed to say a few good words, and he didn't need to be the manager of the branch at all. It wasn't good for him, the vice president, to stay in the North Island for a long time and be far away from the power core of the headquarters in Middle Island. Intuition told Lin Yi that Hong Zhong didn't have a good time in Middle Island these days. As expected, Hong Zhong sighed and said, "Young Master Lin, you don't know, although I was promoted to the vice president because of my merit, and I'm also one of the top executives in the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. I've been operating in the North Island for a long time, so I don't have a deep foundation in the headquarters. So, when I went to Middle Island recently, I was pushed aside by a group of people led by the executive vice president." Lin Yi's eyelids twitched slightly. This situation really caught him off guard. A powerful dragon couldn't suppress a snake in its old haunts, not to mention that the other party's position and power were above Hong Zhong's. He was a real local dragon. Hong Zhong took a sip of wine and continued, "I have an empty position but no real power, so I can't do anything at all. They've already made me a mere figurehead. If I continue to stay here, I'm afraid I'll completely become an idler. So I can only take this opportunity to go back to the North Island first. So at least I can be a little more independent." It seems that the Hong Chamber of Commerce is also a Jianghu. Lin Yi sighed, and then comforted him. "It's okay, we'll do it step by step. Elder Hong, tell me in detail when you have time, and I'll see if I can help." Chapter 4074. Cheers! Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuefei answered cheerfully. Lin Yi also raised his glass and put Hong Zhong's matter aside for the time being. Hong Zhong was his ally. The better Hong Zhong did, the more help he would be to him in the future. But for now, even Hong Zhong himself didn't know how to get out of the predicament. Lin Yi was only an honorary vice president and half an outsider to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, so he couldn't help much at the moment. There was still plenty of time. However, it wasn't a bad thing for Lin Yi that Hong Zhong came back to the North Island now. He was a reliable person, and it would be much easier for him to get some rare treasures from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. After the meal, Lin Yi asked, "Mr. Hong, I need a spiritual medicine called Appearance Mushroom. I've booked it here before. Do you have any news?" "Young Master Lin, I'll ask someone to check it out." After a while, Hong Zhong, who got the report, shook his head and said, "There's no news yet. I've used Appearance Mushroom before, so I know a little about it. It's not only rare, but it will wither quickly after being picked. So, very few trial takers will go to collect Appearance Mushroom. Even if they book it in advance, it's hard to get it in a short time." "I see. Then we can only wait." Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. "Young Master Lin, don't worry. I'll ask someone to increase the reward. It won't take long." Hong Zhong comforted him with a smile. Those who take the task to collect spiritual medicine are gone for many days, so it's normal to have no news for a while. Few people will go there just for Appearance Mushroom, because it's a waste of energy and cost, and it can't be sold at a high price. But with a high reward, there must be brave people. As long as I raise the reward, someone will be interested. At least when they go to collect medicine, they'll pay more attention to Appearance Mushroom, and the probability of finding it will be higher. Hearing this, Lin Yi suddenly had a thought. He said, "Where exactly are the people that old Hong mentioned gathering herbs? Could it be the back mountains of the 3 pavilions? Can I go there personally?" Lin Yi didn't know how long the King of Junk could drag on, but it was better to get these supplementary materials as soon as possible. Rather than relying on others, it was better to rely on oneself. This had always been Lin Yi's style. "Oh, this old man has forgotten. Young hero Lin, although you are still a newcomer to the welcoming pavilion, in terms of strength, you are much stronger than me." He has long surpassed most of the disciples of the 3 pavilions. When Hong Zhong heard this, he was stunned for a moment. Then he reacted and explained the place to pick the herbs is not in the back mountain. That is the private territory of the three great pavilions. Only disciples of the three great pavilions with permission can enter. Normally, it is not open to the public. Furthermore, many rare herbs and resources, even if they are found, will be handed over to the three great pavilions and are not allowed to flow out. Linny thought it made sense. Just like the newcomer's trial, the herbs collected in the process would eventually be handed over to the back mountain hall. They were not allowed to take them out privately. If it is not the back mountain, then where is it? Linny continued to ask. The back mountain is rich in resources, but the back mountain is not the only place in the North Island where you can collect herbs. You can go to other places. However, young Hero Lin, if you really want to go in person, you need to register an account in the North Island Cultivators Guild. Hong Zhong suggested. The North Island Cultivators Guild. It was the first time that Lin Yi had heard of this name since he came to the Heaven Stage Island for half a year. Hong Zhong nodded and said, "Yes, this is a guild that theoretically covers all the cultivators in the North Island. With the three pavilions as the leaders, other forces and grassroots rogue cultivators will also register and gather in the North Island Cultivators Guild. It will issue all kinds of reward trial tasks every day. Only the cultivators who have registered with it can accept the task and get the reward." "Oh, so I can also go?" Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Of course, the disciples of the three pavilions are the mainstream group there. Young Hero Lin, you must know that the newcomers of the Welcome Pavilion will become the official outer disciples of the three pavilions after 1 year. Unless they become the core disciples of the Gold Core stage or apprentice to the elders of the three pavilions, the cultivation resources are still very limited. If they want to improve quickly, they have to rely on themselves and constantly do trial tasks to get paid. Hong Zhong explained in detail. But I heard people say that the three pavilions give out missions themselves. Linny was confused. That's right, but the missions issued by the three pavilions are generally high-risk and high-reward missions. Although they're specially prepared for the disciples of the three pavilions, ordinary outer disciples can't do them if they're not strong enough. In contrast, the missions issued by the Cultivators Guild in the North Island every day are much easier. It's a way for most of the outer disciples of the three pavilions to increase their experience and also a shortcut to earn spiritual jades. For example, young Master Lin, the heart-devouring, exquisite grass you asked me to buy, was obtained from the bounty mission over there. Hong Zhong revealed. Lin Yi's interest was piqued. He asked eagerly, "Elder Hong, are there any requirements for registering at the Cultivators Guild?" "There are no thresholds. As long as your strength is above the foundation establishment stage, it's okay." Your Welcome Pavilion generally doesn't encourage newcomers to go there to take trial tasks, so they won't tell you at all. But with your strength, it's a different story. Hong Zhong smiled lightly. "Okay, then I'll try." Lin Yi immediately made up his mind. Before his voice died away, Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuefei suddenly said in unison, "Great, we want to go with you." Lin Yi's face suddenly darkened, but before he could object, Hong Zhong had already spoken for him. "No, that place is extremely dangerous. If you two go, not only will you not be able to help young Master Lin, but you will also get into trouble. It's only been a few days. Have you forgotten Si Hai Xiao? Grandpa Hong, we may not necessarily meet that old bastard." Shanghai Laner said, weakly. Hong Zhong shook his head, helplessly. "What I mean is, there are more than one or two scumbags like him in the cultivation world. Beautiful female cultivators like you too. No matter where you go, you will be the focus of attention, and it's easy to get into trouble. The trial site is completely out of the control of the three pavilions and the West Island. If anything happens, it's too late to save you." Chapter 4075. Young Master Lin, you have to be careful. It's a mess over there, and it's not like the 3 pavilions where there are all kinds of restrictions. It's not uncommon for people to kill each other without saying a word. Even if your strength is good now, you have to be careful. Hong Zhong specially reminded him. Don't worry, Elder Hong. I understand. Linny nodded. In order to get the mutual life mushroom as soon as possible, he had to go this time. If he delayed it for too long, God knew if he would fail this time. And during this time, Lin Yi also clearly felt that his life in Welcome Pavilion was a bit too comfortable. After Su Lingchong disappeared, the remaining people like Kong Mingming and Meng Tong were no longer his opponents. They didn't pose any challenge to him. This kind of environment was actually not a good thing for cultivation. Even if it was to improve his strength, Lin Yi had to go out to gain experience and look for further opportunities. This time, it was not only to find the mutual life mushroom, but also Lin Yi had another more important purpose, which was to look for opportunities to break through to the Pika Foundation establishment realm so that he could get ready to break through to the Elixir realm as soon as possible. Actually, the only thing I'm a little worried about now is how to explain to Welcome Pavilion. Linny frowned and said, this time he would definitely be out for a long time. If he didn't have a suitable reason, Welcome Pavilion might make trouble. After all, he was now nominally the reception deacon of West Island. If he left Ning Shuefei behind and went to do a task, it would be a serious dereliction of duty. It's okay, junior brother, just go. Fei Fei, and I can help you. Just say that you went to buy things for us. Hee hee. Shangguan Laner giggled. Buy things? What kind of weird reason was that? Lin Yi nodded with a bitter smile. Since Shanghai Laner had already said so, even if others wanted to take the opportunity to cause trouble, they couldn't refute. Elder Hong, do you know where the mutual life mushroom can be found? Linny asked. Hukai Mount Tianwu. This is the place with the highest probability of finding the life phase mushroom. The life appearance mushrooms usually grow in cold and damp places with no light. So, young hero Lin, after you get there, you can try your luck at a few of the streams. You should be able to reap some rewards. Hong Zhong suggested to Lin Yi based on the information he knew. Phew, I'll remember Mount Tianwu. However, where is this mountain located? Linny asked. Hee hee, this mountain is also considered a famous mountain. Its fame is no less than the back mountain of the 3 great pavilions. Its location is between the North Island and the Middle Island. Hong Zhong said with a smile. Ha! Between North Island and Central Island? Could it be that the 2 islands are connected? Linny was shocked. Not bad. Young hero Lin, you can't be thinking that the North Island and the Middle Island are separated by the sea, right? Hong Zhong asked curiously. Yes. Linny scratched his head, awkwardly. Ever since he came to Heaven Stage Island, he had always heard people talking about the 5 main islands of Heaven Stage. Moreover, it was very difficult to travel between the North Island and the Middle Island. Naturally, he thought that the 5 main islands of Heaven Stage were isolated from each other. Hong Zhong couldn't help but smile and said, actually, according to young hero Lin's understanding, it's not wrong. Although the North Island and the Middle Island are connected by a long and narrow mountain range, just like the back mountain of the 3 great pavilions, this mountain range is occupied by all kinds of powerful spirit beasts. Moreover, it is often affected by natural disasters, such as hurricanes. The danger level was much higher than the depths of the back mountain. Therefore, even powerful cultivators would rarely cross the 2 islands on foot. If they travel between the 2 islands, they usually use flying spirit beasts or treasured ships. Treasured ships? Lin, he was slightly stunned. Another new thing that he had never heard of. There are sea beasts wreaking havoc in the sea. Coupled with the threat of natural disasters, It's even more dangerous than traveling by land. No matter how good the sailing technology is, it's impossible for ordinary ships to travel between the two islands. Only treasured ships can do it. Hong Zhong paused and explained, treasured ships are left behind by ancient craftsmen. Not only is the body of the ship far stronger and more reliable than ordinary ships, the key point is that there is a powerful formation on the ship that can resist super strong attacks and natural disasters. Moreover, it has a confusing effect on most sea beasts. Even if it passes over their heads, it won't be discovered. That's really a wonderful work of art. Linny was amazed. Unfortunately, the Tao of equipment forging has declined for many years now, and it's difficult to even see an ordinary equipment forging master, let alone a grandmaster equipment forging master. The extraordinary ancient art of forging treasured ships has been lost since a long time ago, and there's one less treasured ship that's destroyed. Now, it has already become a symbol to measure the strength of the various merchant groups, and the stronger the merchant group, the more treasured ships under its command. Hong Zhong sighed with emotion. Oh, what do you mean by that? Lin, he couldn't help but feel strange. Even if the number of treasured ships was rare, it didn't have to be directly related to the strength of the merchant association. Every merchant association had its own strengths. For example, the Five Elements commerce under the Middle Island Pill Hall had always been in the business of elixirs and didn't dabble in other businesses, but it was still recognized as the #1 merchant association. Young hero Lin, you don't know that the transportation of goods between the Heaven Stage Islands usually goes by water, and the only way to do that is to rely on treasured ships. So, treasured ships determine the most important transportation capacity of the merchant association. It's the lifeline that the big merchant associations rely on to survive. Hong Zhong said seriously, it's not that we can't take the other routes, but the flying spirit beasts in the sky can only carry too little goods each time. The transportation capacity is not on the same level as that of treasured ships. I see. Lin Yi finally understood. As for the mountain range, of course, it's not that we can't take it, but there are too many uncertain factors, and the risk is too high. It's hard to control. Moreover, the mountain road is rugged. Unless we take it often or have some special needs, the price is too high. Normally, no one is willing to try it, Hong Zhong said. Indeed, big merchant associations prioritize stability and reliability. The land route is so risky. If we pin our hopes on it, it'll ruin our reputation if there's an accident that leads to a shortage of goods. Lin Yi nodded in agreement. Last time, the Hong Merchant Association was jointly targeted by several other merchant associations. In fact, it was because they used the shortage of goods to make a fuss. At the level of a top merchant association, their advance and retreat depended on the market's reputation. If they were careless, they might lose everything. That's right. With young Hero Lin's comprehension and insight, it'll be a loss if you don't do business. Hong Zhong chuckled and then said, I brought this up because I want to tell you that I have friends in the Middle Island. If young Hero Lin accidentally goes to the Middle Island, you can look for Assistant Manager Kai of the Five Elements Commerce under the Middle Island Pill Hall. Chapter 4076. Even if Five Elements Commerce didn't join hands with other chambers of commerce last time, it was obvious that they were competing with each other. The top management of the two chambers of commerce were just friendly on the surface, but it was hard to say that they were friends. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. This is a private friendship. When I was young, I participated in a few trial missions with him. He's a reliable person. Young Hero Lin, if you have any problems, you can go to him. I'm just giving you a heads up. Young Hero Lin, it's unlikely that you'll go to Middle Island for the time being, so you might not need him, Hong Zhong said with a smile. Whether I need to use him or not, I'll keep your kindness in mind. Lin Yi nodded gratefully. Coming out of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi sent Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei back to Hualan residence. He went back to the welcoming pavilion to inform senior brother Ku and the others, and then went to the King of Junk's secret casting base. He didn't know how long he would be gone this time, so he should at least inform him in advance. However, as soon as he walked into the cave, Lin Yi was shocked by the King of Junk's miserable appearance. He was covered with bruises all over his body, and the white gauze was still stained with blood. "Brother Wang, what's wrong with you?" Lin Yi asked quickly. The King of Junk smiled indifferently and waved his hand. "I'm fine. I was accidentally sneaked in 2 days ago. It's okay to get some minor injuries. I'm used to it." Was it Kang Mingming and his men? Lin Yi guessed correctly. The King of Junk had protected this secret base very well, and no one had ever known about it for so many years. It was only because he was careless last time and was followed by Kang Mingming and his men that people knew about this secret casting base. "I'm really fine. When I used to cast weapons, I was often burned by fire and exploded many times. But that Kang Mingming you mentioned, his moves are a bit strange. I've never seen anyone use alchemy fire as a fighting move. It's quite powerful, but it's okay. I'll be fine after a few days of rest." The King of Junk laughed carelessly. "That move should have been a pill flame bomb. It's all my fault for causing you to be injured. I'm truly sorry." Lin Yi said apologetically. He had been playing around with Laner and Ning Xuefei these days, and didn't pay attention to the King of Rags. He didn't expect that such a thing would happen. He was too careless. After saying that, Lin Yi went behind the tattered king and placed his palm on his back, using his mental cultivation method to heal him. "Brother Lin, what are you doing?" Feeling the warm, genuine qi from Lin Yi's palm, the King of Rags was shocked. While feeling comfortable, he found that the wounds all over his body began to itch, which was a sign of self-healing. After a while, Lin Yi slowly withdrew his true qi and said, "Brother Wang, how do you feel now?" It was much better than before. My wounds don't hurt at all." "Brother Lin, what kind of technique is this? It's too amazing." The tattered king stretched his arms and legs and said in surprise, "Based on his past experience, this kind of injury would hurt for at least another month." He didn't expect it to be completely healed by Lin Yi's treatment. It was unbelievable. Lin Yi chuckled and said, "It's just a small trick. Brother Wang, if you get injured again in the future, just let me know. It's just a small injury." That's good. There's no weapon that doesn't get injured. I won't be polite to you in the future." The King of Rags scratched his head and laughed. "Right, I came here this time to tell you, Brother Wang, that I'm going out to look for the life-growing mushroom. As for when I'll be back, I can't say for sure. So I'll have to trouble you to keep an eye on this place." "Brother Wang," Lin Yi said, "Yes, the life-growing mushroom is hard to find. I'll have to trouble you to make a trip." The King of Rags nodded, and then suddenly said, "By the way, Brother Lin, are you going to hide your identity this time?" "Of course. The North Island Cultivators Guild is a complicated place. I can't go there as a newcomer in the Welcome Pavilion. It'll be too eye-catching." Lin Yi nodded. "In that case, Brother Lin, you can't use your original 1,000 silk mask anymore. After all, many people know about it. Even if you wear it, it's hard to guarantee that it won't be discovered. Let me modify it for you," King of Junk suggested. Modify the 1,000 silk mask? Lin, he was a little stunned. He remembered that the King of Rags mentioned that he could also make this kind of mask. That's right. Although it takes a lot of effort to make this thing, it's easy to modify it and change its appearance. The King of Rags took Lin Yi's 1,000 silk mask and asked casually, "Brother Lin, what do you want to look like?" Lin Yi thought about it. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you, Wang Bro, to make me look like a rugged warrior. In Jianghu, in addition to powerful strength, appearance was also a very useful weapon. For example, a martial artist with a rough appearance, because of the first impression, people would think that he was not intelligent and simple-minded, so he was more likely to be trusted. Of course, it was also easier for people with ulterior motives to look down on him, so he could pretend to be weak to eat the tiger. In a short while, the 1,000-silk mask in the hands of the King of Rags had completely changed into a new look. Just as Linny requested, it looked rough and domineering. From a distance, it looked like a standard martial artist. But if you looked closely, you would find that it was rare to see a martial artist. Brother Wang, your craftsmanship is really amazing. I think it's more than enough to be a professional painter. Lin Yi praised from the bottom of his heart. With a few simple sketches, he could make such a full and vivid appearance. It was really a magic skill. The King of Junk chuckled proudly and said, "As a blacksmith, the key to designing a casting plan lies in the drawing. The accuracy of the drawing directly determines the success rate. Don't think that I've never forged anything decent before, but my basic skills aren't bad at all. Besides, I like drawing for fun when I have nothing to do. I've made a fool out of myself. Brother Lin." Lin Yi gave the guy a thumbs up, putting everything else aside. The King of Garbage's talent in craftsmanship alone was a rare prodigy. The next day, Lin Yi set out early in the morning. He put on the brand-new 1,000-silk mask and went to the Cultivators' Guild in the north, according to Hong Zhong's guidance. It was not far from the 3 pavilions. It was less than 5 kilometers away from the 3 pavilions. Although it was still early, the lobby of the Cultivators' Guild was already full of people. Chapter 4077. At a glance, more than 50% of the people in the crowd were dressed like disciples of the 3 pavilions. Most of them were outer sect disciples. Apart from them, there were some grassroots itinerant cultivators from the cultivator tribes. There were also some merchants' own trial teams. For a large chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, if they lacked something, they would usually offer a reward to buy it. However, this method was not suitable for small merchants. They usually recruited some people to form a trial team. In addition to collecting for themselves, they could also earn spiritual jades through reward tasks. It was a small cost, and they could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. However, this method had a lot of uncertainty, and the supply was often not enough. Therefore, they were destined to be small chambers of commerce. Passing through the noisy hall that was like a market, Lin Yi went straight to a room on the side. There was a sign here that indicated it was a special registration point. In fact, if Lin Yi came here specifically for the Mutual Life mushroom, he did not have to come to the North Island Cultivators Guild. He could find a way to go directly to Mount Hutsai Tianwu. However, Lin Yi finally decided to listen to Hong Zhong's advice and register here, because as long as he accepted a task here, he could directly get the corresponding information from the Cultivators Guild, including the route map and all kinds of things to pay attention to. It could save him a lot of tedious preparation work, which was what Lin Yi really needed. The registration process was not complicated. After Lin Yi showed his cultivation of the foundation building stage, he quickly passed the test and got a membership card of the Cultivators Guild. Of course, it was not free. It cost 100 spiritual jades, just like the spiritual jade card. After instilling the user's signature true chi, he could rely on a special microformation to identify and verify his identity. It was also a special technological product on the Heaven Stage Island. Its reliability and security were much better than the similar products on Earth. 100 spiritual jades was not expensive. This membership card was not only the identity symbol for Lin Yi to join the Cultivators Guild of the North Island, but also the reward for completing tasks in the future, like the spiritual jade card. It could be used at the major chambers of commerce under the jurisdiction of the Merchant Union. And with Lin Yi's current appearance, his name showed on the membership card was Ling Yi. After completing the membership, the next thing Lin Yi had to do was naturally to accept the mission. The North Island Cultivators Guild divided the tasks into two areas, one for the Golden Core stage and the other for the Foundation Establishment stage. Gold Core stage members had private rooms, and missions were all completed in the private rooms. However, many Gold Core stage missions were issued by the three Great Pavilions, and most of them were received by the disciples of the three Great Pavilions. Very few people would come here to receive missions, except for a few powerful rogue cultivators. As for the Foundation Establishment stage mission area, it was the lobby that Lin Yi had just passed through. The situation was the complete opposite of the Gold Core stage. It was bustling with activity and overcrowded. All the tasks would be written on the task board and hung on the big blackboard in the middle. After the mission was completed, it would be canceled. Those that had been accepted but not yet completed would have a tick on the mission board, indicating that it was still in progress. However, other than the various bounty missions, Lin Yi noticed that there was also a blackboard next to it. From top to bottom, it was filled with names. It was also the focus of everyone's discussion. List of North Island experts. Looking at the dark gold characters at the top, Lin Yi couldn't help but be slightly surprised. This list was really big. The North Island Cultivators Guild claimed to include all the cultivators in the North Island. Could it be that those mysterious super experts were all on this list? Lin Yi thought that if this was the case, then he really had to take a good look and even write it down carefully. At least when he had a conflict with others in the future, he would have a plan in mind. However, at the first glance full of expectations, Lin Yi immediately rejected this possibility. The reason was very simple. Many of the high-level big shots of the three Great Pavilions did not appear on this list, and there was no Ramjia, not even the head of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion, Shanghai Tianhua. If it was said that Shangguan Tianhua was not the #1 master of the North Island, that would not be surprising. But if it was said that Shangguan Tianhua could not even make it into this so-called North Island master ranking, that would be too ridiculous. Looking carefully at the description of the list next to it, Lin Yi realized that the so-called North Island experts list was actually just a gimmick. Strictly speaking, this list could only be regarded as a list of task contribution points, not a list of strength. Moreover, this list was limited to those in the Foundation Establishment realm, and experts above the Elixir realm were not included in this list. In the North Island Cultivators Guild, every time you completed a bounty mission, in addition to the reward, you would also get a corresponding point called task contribution points. The more bounty missions you completed, the more points you had, and the higher your ranking was. If that's the case, then this ranking isn't completely worthless. Lin Yi said thoughtfully as he rubbed his chin. Although it was ranked by task contribution points instead of a more intuitive assessment of strength in the North Island Cultivators Guild, which mainly focused on bounty missions, the mission completion rate could reflect strength to a large extent. At least in the Foundation Establishment realm, it was relatively reliable. At this time, the staff of the Cultivators Guild updated the list. The first place was still the same name, but the string of contribution points behind it had skyrocketed. Wow, Senior Brother Su Zhaoha is so awesome. I haven't been here for only a few days, but the contribution points have increased so much again. It has exceeded 100,000. This is too exaggerated and too powerful. A person dressed as a disciple of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion exclaimed, unable to hide the admiration and awe in his tone. Yes, The second place now only has more than 60,000. This gap is too big, and there is no suspense at all. In the entire history of the North Island Cultivators Guild, there are only a few who can surpass 100,000. The people around him also sighed. At this time, one of them boasted, what do you guys know? Senior Brother Sue is a rare genius in the North Island in 1,000 years. He's not even 30, and he's already in the foundation establishment realm. I heard that Senior Brother Sue is already preparing for core formation. If this continues, he will definitely become a legend, like the elixir god Zhang Liju. If he's so strong, then why is he still doing missions? Isn't it better to save all the energy he used to do missions and try to core formation as soon as possible? Someone asked. Chapter 4078. If he's that powerful, then his future is limitless. Hearing the discussions and exclamations of the people around him, Lin Yi only glanced at the names on the leaderboard and shook his head. None of this had much to do with him, and he wasn't interested in it either. Turning his head to look at the mission leaderboard, Lin Yi began to search for missions related to Hutsai Tian Wu Mountain. Only by doing so would he be able to obtain the corresponding map and information from the guild. After searching back and forth between the densely packed mission boards, Lin Yi finally found a mission that fit the requirements. Mission issuer is the Wealthy Guild. Mission location is Hutsai Tian Wu Mountain and the surrounding mountains. Seeking to purchase 100 bitter fruit, 100 heartless phoenix eyebrows grass. Purchasing such a large amount of spiritual medicine was already considered a big mission in the mission area for the foundation establishment stage. If it was someone else, it would be very difficult to complete the mission alone. However, Lin Yi had the Skybolt pig. As long as he went to the right place, it would only take him a bit more time to collect the spiritual medicine. So it wasn't a problem. However, just as Lin Yi was about to accept the mission, he saw a member of the guild put an eye-catching tick on the mission board. A mission that was hard to come by was snatched away just like that. Lin Yi's face immediately darkened. He could only curse his bad luck and helplessly turn around to continue searching in the mission area. At this time, he suddenly heard someone say, "Captain, Junior Lee Cabello isn't here today. He was called to do a temporary mission at the Blue Cloud Pavilion. We're currently lacking one person. Should we find someone else to join us?" The person called Captain was a masked woman. She nodded in agreement and said, "That's a good idea. This time, there are so many spiritual medicines in Hutsai Tian Wu Mountain. Just the three of us won't be enough." Hearing this, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He walked to the side of these people and purposely muttered to himself, "It's already so late. Why isn't old Xiao here yet? I can't accept any missions by myself. I came here for nothing. This guy is really unreliable." As expected, when these people looked at each other just now, their gazes fell on Lin Yi. There was a sense of scrutiny in their gazes. Seeing that Lin Yi's appearance was rough, and he was a typical martial artist, they immediately nodded in relief. The masked woman walked up to Lin Yi in 2 steps and said, "Fellow trial taker, I inadvertently overheard your words just now. Do you want to do the quest too?" When Lin Yi saw that she had taken the bait, he was overjoyed. He quickly nodded and said, "Yes, I originally discussed with my companion that we would go together, but this guy is always in trouble. It seems that he won't be able to come this time. He's having a headache." What a coincidence! Our team just so happened to receive a mission to gather spirit herbs at the Heaven Meridian Mountain, and we're also lacking a member. Would you like to join us?" The masked woman immediately threw out an olive branch. "Join your team." Lin Yi pretended to hesitate for a moment, and then agreed. "That's good. Anyway, I have nothing to do by myself. That's what I was thinking." When he had been observing earlier, Lin Yi had already discovered that many people in the lobby did quests in groups. For example, the trial team in front of him was led by the leader. The others assisted, and they worked together to complete the quests. In comparison, the trial takers who did quests alone. Although there were not many of them. After all, a high reward meant a high risk. The difficulty of the quests issued by the big chambers of commerce was not low. It was impossible for a person to complete them alone. At most, they could only complete some small, unpresentable quests. If one accepted a quest in a team, the contribution points after the quest was completed would belong to the team leader. As for the reward, it would be distributed among the team members. Every team had different ways of distributing the reward, some more, some less. For the weaker trial takers, joining a team was far more reliable than doing small quests alone. At least in terms of reward, it was far better than doing small quests alone. Seeing that Lin Yi readily agreed, the masked woman immediately became happy. That's great. Let me introduce myself. I'm Huang Xiaotao, the leader of this trial team. My current strength is at the late stage of foundation establishment. After a pause, Huang Xiaotao immediately introduced the two people beside her. These two are junior brother Chen Muzhuan and junior brother Song Jima. They are both in the middle stage of foundation establishment. The three of us are disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. So, they were all from the same sect. Lin Yi secretly nodded, but he pretended to be bold on the surface. He cupped his hands and said to the three of them, I'm Ling Yi. I'm a loose cultivator. Please take care of me. Under normal circumstances, when everyone introduced themselves, they would state their strength because this was the basic basis of cooperation. However, Lin Yi did not say it, and Huang Xiaotao and the other two did not pay much attention to it. They thought that Lin Yi's strength was not high and could not be compared to the three of them, so he was too embarrassed to say it. However, even if Lin Yi did not say it, they could at least be sure that this Ling Yi, whom they met for the first time, was definitely a foundation establishment expert. Otherwise, if he could not pass the test, he would not be able to become a member of the guild. In any case, this time, it was not a dangerous mission to deal with a powerful spirit beast. It was just to gather spiritual herbs. As long as they had a certain level of self-protection, it would not be a problem. Even if they were not strong, it was not bad to be a coolie. Lin Yi's participation would be very helpful to their team of three. The three of them exchanged greetings with Lin Yi for a while. Afterwards, they did not stay in the guild for long. They immediately left the guild under Huang Xiaotao's lead and prepared to set off. Holding the map and route provided by the guild, Lin Yi estimated his position and found that Hucai Tianwu Mountain was thousands of miles away. He could not help but ask doubtfully, Leader Xiaotao, that Hucai Tianwu Mountain is so far away. How are the four of us going to get there? Wouldn't it take a lot of time to walk there? Hearing this, the three of them smiled at each other and didn't reply. Huang Xiaotao walked to an empty space and whistled towards the sky. A moment later, a flying spirit beast whistled as it spiraled down and landed in front of the four of them. Seeing this, Lin Yi could not help but be surprised. In front of him was a large spirit bird with beautiful tail feathers. It had a gentle personality and was extremely fast. It was the best choice to become a flying spirit beast. If it was sold, it would probably be sold for a sky-high price. This Huang Xiaotao's wealth was not low. Even people like the Southern Skygate did not have their own flying spirit beast. However, Huang Xiaotao, as a disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, had one. It could be seen that it was not without reason that Chen Muzhuan and the others were willing to rely on her. Of course, there was another possibility. This large spirit bird was bought by Huang Xiaotao for a large sum of money to make it convenient for her to do bounty quests. Chapter 4079. I see. Linny nodded. It made sense. The butterfly queen that Morongjin subdued was also a flying spiritual beast, but it was not suitable for long-distance riding. Compared with other flying spiritual beasts commonly used by the three pavilions and the Chamber of Commerce, this spiritual bird was not small. It was not crowded even after 4 people got on it, and it was very stable after taking off. They could even meditate and cultivate after the spiritual bird took off. The 4 of them had nothing to do, so they chatted with each other to kill time and get to know each other better. After all, Lin Yi was a newcomer. The more they knew each other, the more familiar they would be with each other. After chatting for a while, Lin Yi suddenly said, "Captain Xiaotao, I have some doubts, but I don't know if I should ask. Of course, if it's not convenient, it's okay. I'm just curious." "Oh, since we're in the same team, we should be honest with each other. Brother Ling Yi, if you have any questions, just tell me. I'll tell you everything I know," Huang Xiaotao said enthusiastically. "Okay, then forgive me for being presumptuous. Captain Xiaotao, you just said that the 3 of you are disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion, but as far as I know, the 3 pavilions don't accept female disciples. Don't all female cultivators go to the West Island? Also, why does Captain Xiaotao need to cover her face?" Lin Yi asked curiously. In the Welcome Pavilion for more than half a year, except for Morongjin, he had never heard that there were female disciples in Blue Cloud Pavilion. As for why the other party covered her face, he had some guesses. This woman was either extremely beautiful like a fairy or extremely ugly. Anyway, no matter which one it was, it should be easy to get into trouble. Otherwise, if it was just an ordinary beauty, there was no need to cover her face deliberately. It was easy to arouse people's imagination and attract attention. Huang Xiaotao was slightly stunned. She didn't want to hide it, but she didn't know what to say at the moment. At this time, Song Jima immediately explained for her enthusiastically, "Brother Ling Yi, you may not know this, but Captain Xiaotao used to be an excellent disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion. She came from the same cultivator tribe as the famous Su Zhaoha. Because of her outstanding strength and talent, she was valued by the higher-ups of Soaring Sky Pavilion. In addition, Su Zhaoha, a rare genius disciple, also said good things about her. So Captain Xiaotao made an exception and stayed behind instead of being sent to West Island." "Soaring Sky Pavilion's disciple? Didn't Captain Xiaotao just say that you're all disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion?" Lin Yi asked in astonishment. Huang Xiaotao's eyes dimmed, but she didn't say anything. Instead, Song Jima continued to speak on her behalf. If that incident hadn't happened, Captain Xiaotao would still be a disciple of the Soaring Pavilion with a bright future ahead of her. She wouldn't have been forced to come to our Blue Cloud Pavilion. Although that's how we got to know Captain Xiaotao. Every time I think about that incident, I feel indignant on her behalf. That matter? Lin Yi frowned slightly. He had been rushed from the Soaring Pavilion to the Blue Cloud Pavilion. Why did this experience sound a little similar to Morongjin's? Humph, Brother Ling Yi, you should have heard people talking about how talented Su Zhaoha is, right? Actually, this guy looks dignified, but he's a hypocrite. Song Jima gnashed his teeth in indignation and said, "Not long after entering the Soaring Pavilion, he forced Captain Xiaotao to become his cultivation partner. Originally, everyone loves beauty. This isn't a big deal, but this bastard is unscrupulous in order to achieve his goal. In the end, Captain Xiaotao had no choice but to use her head to hit the wolf spikes. Only after she disfigured herself did that shameless bastard give up. After that, Captain Xiaotao was kicked out of the Soaring Sky Pavilion and entered our Clear Cloud Pavilion. Now that I look at it, I thought he was being kind back then, putting in a good word for Captain Shouthow to enter the soaring pavilion. He was simply a wolf with ulterior motives. If that's the case, then that Su Zhaohe is really a scumbag with a human face. Lin Yi finally understood why Huang Xiaotao had purposely covered her face, and he secretly felt pity for her. Thinking back, even a top-notch young master like Su Lingchong could do such a despicable act like raping Shanghai Laner. He could be said to be the same kind of trash as Su Zhaohe. The soaring pavilion looked bright and beautiful in the eyes of the world, but it was simply a gathering of scumbags on the inside. If the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. However, the weak were prey to the strong. This was the nature of the cultivation world. Taking Lin Yi's own experience as an example, if he didn't have enough strength, he would have long been trampled to death by Meng Jueguang and his gang. How could he still be alive today? Didn't the law enforcement hall intervene in this matter? Didn't Pavilion Master Shangguan of the Soaring Pavilion ask about it? Lin Yi continued to ask. Lin Yi didn't dare to guarantee what would happen to other people, but after a few interactions, he still trusted Shanghai Tianhua's character. No matter how much of a genius Su Zhaohe was, he believed that Shanghai Tianhua wouldn't cover up such a vile act just because he cherished talent. Brother Ling Yi, you're a wandering cultivator, but you seem to understand the matters of our three great pavilions quite well. Song Jima and the other two looked at Lin Yi in surprise, but they didn't take it to heart. There were many wandering cultivators who wanted to join the three great pavilions, so it was very normal for them to pay more attention to the matters of the three great pavilions. Song Jima sighed and said, actually, the law enforcement hall intervened in that matter. However, that bastard Su Zhaohe went to the law enforcement hall and was released very quickly. The conclusion that the law enforcement hall came to was that there wasn't enough evidence. The most infuriating thing was that bastard actually made a countercharge, saying that Captain Shoutao framed him. That's simply preposterous. As for Pavilion Master Shangguan, that kind of high and mighty big shot is so busy every day. How would he have time to care about such a small matter? It was said that this case was transferred to the law enforcement hall by the second senior brother of Soaring Sky Pavilion, Su Lingchong. Pavilion Master Shangguan probably hasn't heard of it at all. Su Lingchong again. Even Lin Yi, an outsider, couldn't help but feel indignant when he heard this. Su Lingchong, this guy, harbored evil intentions. He himself often did such dirty things. Su Zhaohe could be so arrogant, maybe he was in cahoots with him. What happened after that? Captain Shoutao didn't think of reversing the verdict? Did she just swallow this resentment? Lin Yi said indignantly, if it were him, he would have tried to kill Su Zhaohe long ago. How would he have allowed that scum to live freely to this day? At this time, Huang Xiaotao, the person involved, finally opened her mouth and smiled bitterly. The gap between me and him is so big. What can I do even if I can't bear it? My only wish now is to save up spiritual jades to buy a youth-retaining elixir and restore my appearance. Then I'll leave the North Island and become a free and unfettered wandering cultivator. Chapter 4080. Currently, Su Zhaohe was regarded as the Soaring Sky Pavilion's genius of 1,000 years, and Shangguan Tianhua was about to take him in as a disciple, whereas she, Huang Xiaotao, was just a mere Clear Cloud Pavilion disciple without strength or influence. What did she have to contend against the other side? Lin Yi looked at her deeply and said meaningfully, Captain Shoutao, if you don't untie this knot in your heart, even if you become a rogue cultivator, you won't be able to live freely. Perhaps, but what else can I do? Huang Xiaotao shook her head helplessly and changed the topic. She forced herself to raise her spirits and said to everyone, okay, Let's stop chatting and get back to business. According to past experience, it will take us 3 days to reach the Hutsai Tian Wu Mountain. Everyone should rest well. I will be in charge of commanding the spirit bird. If we encounter any danger, I will inform you. Chun Muzhuan and Song Jima were already used to this. After looking at each other, they didn't say anything and closed their eyes to cultivate. Okay, then I will have to trouble Captain Xiaotao. Linny nodded and didn't ask about the grudge between Huang Xiaotao and Su Zhaohe. He immediately sat down to cultivate. He had just broken through to the peak of the late foundation establishment stage. These 3 days were just the right time to stabilize his cultivation. The journey was smooth. After 3 days, the 4 of them smoothly entered the boundary of the Hutsai Tianwu Mountain. As far as the eye could see, it was lush like a primeval forest. The mountains towered into the sky and stretched endlessly. Even compared to the mountains behind the 3 great pavilions, it was not small. There was a mysterious and powerful aura faintly emitting from it. Huang Xiaotao controlled the spirit bird and landed on the edge of the open space. After instructing the spirit bird to rise into the air again, she reminded Lin, Yi, and the others, "Everyone, be careful. Although we are only in the periphery, we can't rule out the possibility of encountering powerful spirit beasts. If we are careless, we may pay with our lives. Do you understand?" "Understood." Lin, Yi, and the others replied in unison. "All right, then I'll start assigning tasks now. Junior brother Chen Muzhuan will be in charge of being on guard and keeping watch, and I'll be in charge of restraining the nearby spirit beasts. As for brother Ling Yi, you'll follow junior brother Song Jima to gather spirit herbs." Huang Xiaotao instructed. Division of labor and cooperation was the essence of a trial team. The more spiritual herbs a place had, the more spiritual beasts there would be. If there was no one specifically responsible for guarding and restraining the beasts in such a dangerous place, rashly gathering spiritual herbs would simply be courting death. Only when a few people worked together with sincerity would they be able to gather the spiritual herbs and retreat safely. As the team leader, Huang Xiaotao's words carried enormous weight. The 3 of them had no objections and immediately began to busy themselves. In order not to arouse suspicion, Lin Yi did not leave immediately. Instead, he followed them to complete the quest seriously. Hukai Tian Wu Mountain was surrounded by the sea on 2 sides and was surrounded by mountains on 2 sides. Adding on the fact that there were few people here, it created an abundance of spiritual herbs. Wealth came from danger. This was why, even though it was extremely dangerous, many trial takers were still willing to come here. By working together, they had already avoided the dangerous areas where the spiritual beasts gathered. The 4 of them passed their first day without any danger. Lin Yi's role was to carry the spiritual herbs and dig them up. There was no skill to speak of. However, he had no complaints. Huang Xiaotao and the others had come to Hukai Tianwu Mountain a few times before, so they had a good understanding of the place. If Lin Yi followed them, he would be able to quickly familiarize himself with the surroundings. The next day, when the sky was bright, the 4 of them continued their division of labor. Based on their previous tacit understanding, Lin Yi thought that it would continue to be peaceful. However, he didn't expect Chun Muzhuan, who was responsible for guarding the top of the tree, to bring them an unexpected piece of news. After Chun Muzhuan gathered everyone, he reported 10 kilometers ahead there is a spiritual herb thicket. From a rough estimate, there should be at least 100 spiritual herbs there. Everyone was immediately happy. A spiritual herb thicket with more than 100 spiritual herbs was a rare treasure. As long as they could successfully collect it, they would have completed half of the quest ahead of time. Then, are there any powerful spiritual beasts nearby? Although Huang Xiaotao was happy, she didn't let it get to her head. Chen Muzhuan shook his head and said, "Not yet. According to previous experience, there should be spiritual beasts nearby, but there shouldn't be many. At most, there should be 1 or 2 spiritual beasts. Perhaps they are patrolling the territory right now." Song Jima, who was at the side, nodded in agreement. Right, there shouldn't be too many spiritual beasts. Otherwise, senior apprentice brother Chun would definitely be able to find some clues. If there are only 1 or 2 spiritual beasts, then it would be like sending spiritual herbs to your doorstep. Captain Xiaotao? Seeing everyone looking at her eagerly, Huang Xiaotao didn't hesitate for too long. She immediately said, "Okay, we can't miss this opportunity. Since we found it, let's gamble. Junior apprentice brother Chun Muzhuan, you go from the top and carefully monitor the surroundings. Junior apprentice brother Song Jima and brother Ling Yi, you two go collect spiritual herbs. I'll be on the side to keep watch for you and restrain any spiritual beasts that might appear." "Okay." Everyone responded in unison and began to move without saying anything else. Without saying anything, Lin Yi and Song Jima quickly approached the location that Chen Muzhuan had pointed out. What made Lin Yi secretly surprised was that along the way, not to mention powerful spiritual beasts, they didn't even see a small wild beast. This situation was a bit strange. If it was just Lin Yi moving alone with his cautious style, he would first find a place with a wide field of view and observe for a while. However, this was a team operation, and Lin Yi was only a temporary outsider. He didn't have the right to say anything, so he could only increase his vigilance and continue to follow them. Soon, Song Jima and Lin Yi arrived at the spiritual herb thicket. Looking around, there were all kinds of high-quality spiritual herbs in front of them. It was as if they were cabbages that didn't cost anything. "Brother Ling Yi, we've struck it rich this time." Song Jima couldn't help but swallow his saliva. As long as they collected all of these spiritual herbs, even if they couldn't complete the mission, they would still be able to sell these spiritual herbs for at least 1,000 spiritual jades. If they split it evenly, they would have at least 200 to 300 spiritual jades. This was a huge sum of money. With that, Song Jima hurried to start harvesting. Lin Yi, on the other hand, wasn't as impatient as Song Jima. He looked around calmly. Suddenly, under the shade of a tree not far from the spiritual herb thicket, a strangely shaped fruit tree attracted Lin Yi's attention. Chapter 4081. The deformity of the fruit tree was one thing, but what really caught Lin Yi's attention were the 5 dazzling golden fruits at the top of the tree. Even under the shade of the tree, they seemed to be shining with a frightening light. "Brother Ling Yi, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and pick the herbs." Although we have Senior Chen on guard and Captain Xiaotao to control the spirit beast, we still have to move quickly. If we attract some powerful spirit beast, then all our efforts will be in vain. Song Jima noticed that Lin Yi was in a daze and immediately urged him. However, when he noticed that Lin Yi was looking at the strange tree, he was also stunned and couldn't move his eyes away for a long time. After a long time, Song Jima finally reacted while gasping for breath. He pointed at the 5 shining fruits at the top of the tree and stammered, Could this be the legendary myriad crossing, golden core fruit? 10,000 crossing golden dan fruit." Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He had never heard of this name before. However, from Song Jima's expression of surprise, it should be some kind of high-level spiritual medicine. Chun Muzhuan, who was responsible for monitoring the tree, noticed the strange behavior of the 2 people. A strange look suddenly flashed through his eyes, and he immediately jumped down from the tree. However, when his gaze fell on the 5 fruits, his greed was still overflowing. Soon after, Huang Xiaotao, who was wandering around, noticed that something was wrong and approached the three people. After seeing the 5 golden Dan-shaped fruits, her body suddenly seemed to be struck by lightning and couldn't move. 10,000 crossing golden Dan fruit. Is this really the 10,000 crossing golden Dan fruit? Junior Tsong, Jima, I remember that you studied in the spirit medicine nursery for a period of time. Are you sure? Huang Xiaotao said with a face of disbelief. Captain Xiaotao, I guarantee with my head that these 5 fruits are definitely the 10,000 crossing golden Dan fruit. As long as a golden core stage expert consumes it, they can directly raise their level by 1 level. If a foundation establishment stage expert consumes it, they will definitely succeed in forming their core. This is a truly priceless and rare treasure. Song Jima swallowed his saliva and said, this time, even Linny was shocked. A golden core stage expert could directly raise their level, and a foundation establishment stage expert could guarantee a 100% success in forming their core. There was actually such a heaven-defying spiritual medicine in this world. After a while, Huang Xiaotao suppressed the excitement in her heart with great difficulty and said to the others, this is a great opportunity that we may not even have in our next life. Let's split these 10,000 crossing golden core fruits. Okay. Chun Muzhuan and Song Jima hurriedly agreed. As for Lin Yi, he didn't have any objections. But there are 5 10,000 crossing golden Dan fruits here, but there are only 4 of us. It won't be easy to divide them, right? On the way here, Lin Yi had learned that in Huang Xiaotao's team, other than the contribution points going to the captain, the rewards were split equally among the team members. It could be considered a very kind and honest team. Song Jima retorted, what's so difficult about that? Everyone who sees it has a share. The 4 of us will each get 1, and the extra 1 will naturally belong to Captain Xiaotao. She's been taking care of us for such a long time, and she's even the team leader. If it were any other team, she would definitely get the biggest share. This Song Jima is a kind person. Lin Yi secretly nodded. He said, I have no objections. Chun Muzhua looked like he was struggling, but since Song Jima and Lin Yi had already expressed their stance, he was the only one left. Even if he objected, it would be useless. They could only nod along, but there was a hint of haze in their eyes, as if their scheme had succeeded. If that's the case, I'll shamelessly take this universal golden pill fruit. Huang Xiaotao suppressed the joy in her heart and immediately said, in order to make up for everyone's losses, I will distribute my share of the rewards for this and the next few missions to everyone. After the 4 of them finished their discussion, they immediately picked the 5 universal golden pill fruits and put them into their respective bags, excitedly. Every one of them couldn't calm down. At this moment, something strange happened. The jade pendant suddenly gave a warning, and Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. With his current perception, he could clearly feel the aura of 5 powerful spirit beasts rapidly converging on their position from all directions. From the looks of it, it should have been premeditated. They were surrounded. Just as Lin Yi thought to himself that this was indeed a trap, the ghost that hadn't appeared for a long time spoke. Young Lin, you're thinking too much. This isn't a trap. Looking at them, they must have discussed that they would only come to pick the universal golden pill fruit after it fully ripened. Therefore, while they were waiting nearby, they also cleared the area. However, they didn't expect you guys to snatch it in advance. I see. Listening to the ghost's words, Lin Yi could not help but perspire. It turned out that this wasn't a trap at all, but the 5 spirit beasts had already discussed the ownership of the fruits. They probably calculated that each spirit beast would get 1 fruit. On the other hand, Lin Yi and the rest were suspected of burglary. However, there was no such thing as first come, first served for heaven's treasures. According to the law of nature, it had always belonged to the strong. regardless of whether it was Lin Yi or Huang Xiaotao. None of them would be so noble as to give away the universal golden pill fruit that they had obtained. Suddenly realizing that the universal golden pill fruit that they had coveted for a long time had been snatched away, the 5 high-level spirit beasts were instantly enraged and charged toward Lin Yi and the rest from all directions. At this moment, apart from Lin Yi, the rest of them had not noticed anything at all. They were still immersed in the ecstasy of picking up a precious treasure and could not extricate themselves. Should I remind them a little? Lin Yi hesitated for a moment. Although these people were only temporary companions, he did not want them to die in the spirit beasts' mouths just like that. However, before Lin Yi could speak, Huang Xiaotao's expression suddenly froze. She quickly silenced everyone and said sternly, "Something's not right. I feel that something's coming, and it's not just one. Everyone, be careful. I'll go take a look." Then, right in front of Lin Yi and the rest, Huang Xiaotao's figure gradually disappeared into the air at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if she had evaporated into thin air, causing Lin Yi to be dumbfounded. Song Jima explained, "This is a very high-end forest concealment skill. As long as you're in the forest, you can hide yourself perfectly. Brother Ling Yi, don't be fooled by the fact that our leader is a woman. She's very powerful. Forest concealment skill? This is my first time seeing it." Linny nodded thoughtfully. "You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.